Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Commission this December 17, 2024. The clerk will call the roll.
Commissioner Marker.
Here.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cassell.
Here.
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Mayor Carney.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Somebody else.
Agenda approval. You have in front of you the agendas. Are there any?
Let's just do it.
We've confirmed, Lynn, that item's already off, right? Okay. So are there any items anyone would like to amend the agenda?
Not for me.
Pull?
Not for me.
None. Great.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Passes with,
Mayor, your mic is.
sorry?
Unmute your mic.
Your mic.
On my mic. I don't think there's any trouble with anyone in Delray hearing. Citywide. Anyway. So that's 5-0. Great. Presentations. So we have a first presentation by Natalia Salas on the city's potential participation in the multi-state insulin litigation.
Well, that's not a great sign. Mayor, I can brief you through it. I'm not going to go through the presentation because I didn't prepare it. But essentially, I'm seeking permission to enter into this multi-state litigation. It references insulin prices, and so other municipalities have joined this litigation where essentially, if you recall several years ago, insulin manufacturers were brought before congressional hearings because the price of insulin had been increased markedly to the point where some people couldn't even afford it. And so what this lawsuit seeks to do is recoup some of the costs for our taxpayers of the differences in the amounts of the insulin that was paid through our health insurance. So it's very similar to the opioid litigation where we filed the lawsuit and now we're receiving benefits from it. When I did meet with Mr. Ferrero, who's the lead attorney on this, I did ask him if he believed it would be like the opioid funds that we receive where they're kind of earmarked and you can only do certain things with the monies. And he indicated that he didn't believe so, that it would be true reimbursement back to the city. There's no cost to the city to enter this litigation. We would be plaintiffs, and the attorneys that are representing the city would not recoup any fees unless they were able to secure funds for the city. So I'm just asking your permission to enter into this litigation, similar to the other multi-state, the PFAS litigation that we're engaged in, as well as the opioid.
That's fine. Are we all in agreement? Yes?
Yes.
Consensus? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Update on the activities and projects of the city's Economic Development Division. I know I saw Bob, there he is.
So, Mr. Mayor, we simply have Mr. Rob Evans, the city's economic development manager, accompanied by Assistant City Manager Jeff Forrest. We talked a couple times during recent city commission meetings about momentum and activities associated with the economic development realm, and we simply thought it would be appropriate to offer a brief presentation in terms of what current activities and engagements are like, and therefore we have a succinct update for you at this time. Mr. Evans, if you would please proceed.
Hello, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Vice Mayor and the Commission. My name is Rob Evans. I am the Economic Development Manager for the City of Delray Beach, and I'm going to give you an overview of my current activities. I started the position about a little bit over a year ago. And so when I came here, I wanted to start by strengthening the partnerships that we have, and with the DDA, the Delray Chamber, and the SBDC and the CRA. I also wanted to do a bunch of visitations to the different employers in the city, and then try and identify the needs of the employers, which moved me into workforce development, because every time I visited the employers, they had issues with finding people and developing talent. Also, lately I've been meeting with a lot of the commercial real estate brokers to really get an understanding of the different inventory and what's for sale and what's for lease in the city of Delray. So partnership collaboration, I mean, this presentation is really a collaborative effort among all of our partners, the DDA, Career Source, Palm Beach, the Delray Chamber, the CRA, the SBDC. So we've all come together and really tried to figure out how we could work together on a common goal, and to see how we can align ourselves and to help the employers improve the quality of life for the residences and improve the business climate. So I started doing the visitations with the dealerships, the car dealerships, and eventually we moved into having an industry career fair for the dealerships. We then moved into the healthcare companies, and I was doing the visitations with the healthcare companies. Last 2 months, I've been meeting with all the different hotels and restaurant groups and restaurants, and I've been looking at trying to see how we can help them by putting together a career fair as well for them. And next year in 2025, I'll be working on putting together an industry career fair for construction companies, as well as doing a lot of visitations in the construction and also visitations on other companies as well. So here's the industry career fairs. So we've done the automotive industry career fair. We've done the healthcare industry career fair. We're moving in on January 8th to the hospitality career fair. And then we're going to move into a construction one in the beginning of the year. So here is an example of the automotive career fair. So if you look at the number of visitations that were done, I mean, I probably visited about 20 different automotive dealerships. We then put together a pipeline for the universities that had automotive programs. We brought in the different partners, the DDA, the CRA, the SPDC. We put on a huge career fair. We shared a lot of information and knowledge. We figured out how we could refine it, how we could come together, align, and how could we improve it. Next, we had the healthcare industry career fair. We improved on that. We went from 300 with the first career fair to over 500 people registered. We had the Delaware Wellness Center hired 2 new hires from the career fair. And then afterwards, after each career fair, this is more of a model that we've set up. So after the career fair, we then moved into the high schools that had the automotive programs or the pre-apprenticeship programs. We would then bus them in to the dealerships. They would get to meet the general managers. We did this again with the hospital industry career fair, where afterwards we had the career fair. We then bussed in the high school students who were interested, who were not going to a 4-year degree but wanted to go into the healthcare industry, maybe through a certificate program. And that was the Bethesda Hospital tour that we most recently did. So because we're doing a new career fair on January 8th with all the major hotels and the restaurant groups, we're going to now be busing in kids from the high schools so they can get exposure to high-wage occupations here in the city of Delray Beach. And eventually we'll be moving into construction industry. So here's just an example of the Bethesda Hospital tour. You get to see the kids in action. They're getting taught from the different professionals, from respiratory to radiology to laboratory. So they get to get hands-on experience. They rotate through the hospital. We had 3 cohorts, over 90 students. And not only that, they got to meet the CEO. They got to hear his story on how he became the CEO. They also got to meet the COO and the leadership team of Bethesda Hospital. After at this specific event right here, the CEO gave the business card out to the kids and basically said, if you want to come here, we'll figure out a way. And then the first question was, how are we going to get the money? They said, don't worry about that. You come, here's my mobile phone, make an appointment. We'll make sure we get paid for it for you. Another thing that's come out of this relationship is, we've collaborated with all the partners. We've come together. We're aligning ourselves. We're trying to figure out a common goal to work together, to share knowledge, to really develop these relationships. And the good news is now full service. We brought in Bethesda Hospital into full service. And so now they're evaluating the 3 medical programs at Delray Full Service. They have 900 adult students there learning education. And they had, so far they had 10 graduates in the home health care program today. And we had Bethesda Hospital at the graduation today, looking to develop a pipeline so that after they graduate from the 3 medical programs, they have employment. And then lastly, this is just, follow-up of what I'm working on. So the hospitality industry career fair, the field trip that I'll be working on, visitation and outreach into construction companies this year, and then also another field trip into a construction company. Really focus on registered apprenticeship programs and construction, building trades positions, and then developing that pipeline into Delray full service, and then meeting with all the commercial real estate brokers and continue to nurture those relationships. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from anyone in the commission?
You want me to go? No, I just want to say thank you. I had asked for this presentation because Mr. Evans and I had the opportunity to speak, and I was so impressed with what you're doing with our students, because we have so many students for whom college is just not an option. They're not college ready. They don't have a sense of where they're going, and I very much appreciate that we are doing this, and I wanted the residents to know what we are doing. So thank you for the presentation and your time.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes, I would just like to thank you as well. You said that you've been here like a year and a half?
A year and 3 months. Or 4
because
months, yeah.
I actually went out and visited with some of the car dealerships and the construction industry to do exactly the same thing, and it was really hard to find the students that were interested. I went to the graduating classes. However, so glad to see that this, because it means I'm thinking in the right direction. So getting them employment like this, like you said, not everybody is going to go to college, but now we've got to work on a place for them to live once they get these professional jobs. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Markert.
Yeah, Rob, this is great. I mean, this is as I said to some of the students the other day when they were here. I mean, this never happened where I went to high school in Syracuse. So, I think this is leading edge stuff, and I'm really appreciative of the effort you put into it. Offline, the one thing I could offer some help on is you said you want to do some education on fentanyl and opioid crisis.
Yeah.
I do work with the DEA, so I have some connections there, and I'm sure they would partner with us on that.
Yeah, no, I'd love to. I worked at the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance in Broward County.
Yep.
And so they have the fentanyl, the South Florida Opioid Alliance, and they had about a $5 million grant from Florida Blue, which it's for regional. It's for 3 counties. It's for Broward County, it's for Miami-Dade, and it's also for Palm Beaches. They were in Miami-Dade and they were in Broward County. But since I know that I worked with them, I'm trying to move them into West Palm. So they have funding available, they have grants available. So I'm trying to get the boxes that we can install the fentanyl, the Narcans in the different businesses right now. So that's what I'm working on.
Yeah, but we can work offline, and then, like I said, I work with them, so I know they'd partner with us.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Commissioner
you.
Long. Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, you're good.
Just echoing the sentiments of my colleagues. Great work. This is a critical need right now, so thank you for what you're doing.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
I have a little different take, but sure, go ahead.
I was just going to state, please don't think this is all about students. The next career fair that Rob's actively working on is on January 8th. It's a hospitality career fair. It is open to anyone looking for a job in the hospitality industry.
Well, I'm going to take a different tact here, because I mean, I actually read the comprehensive plan as it relates to what economic development is, and you've done great work with workforce development. But the concept of economic development is how are we going to attract businesses to come into Delray Beach? I note that one of your last thing here is review the city of Delray Beach's existing incentive programs. We should be out there now telling people. I mean, we haven't had a seat at the table at any of these conferences that go on nationwide with respect to relocations. Delray Beach is not at present. And among your partners, I don't even see the Business Development Board as one of our partners. Now, I don't understand how an economic development office cannot have the Business Development Board of Palm Beach County as a partner. As I said, you're doing great workforce development is extremely important. But getting businesses to look and helping this, so you're helping the existing businesses find people. But that's not the purpose of, if you read the comprehensive plan, that's a small part of it, of what the economic development office is supposed to be here. It's supposed to be out attracting new businesses to come to Delray Beach. And this is something that I don't see us doing. I don't see us, as I said, we don't have a seat at the table with anybody. Palm Beach, the school board, Palm Beach College, then there was one up in the North County, Palm Beach Atlantic. They've all had these job fairs, which is great. But that's not the role of an economic development office. Economic development office is to stimulate investment in the cities. That's
That's definition 101, right out of Webster's. So I'm not seeing any of that. So what I want to know is, I looked at the last programs that we had. We've got surveys from 2017, restaurant surveys, 2020, 2021, 2019 is related to hotels. Everything we have is pre-COVID. Every one of the studies that we have on our website and that we've studied in front of this board is pre-COVID. I will put it to you that economic development has changed a lot since COVID. Work habits are different, shopping habits are different, everything is different. I don't see us trying to capture any of that, and certainly, and as I said, I applaud the workforce development because that's key. However, business development is what the Economic Development Office is supposed to be focused on. And I know you have a background at Career Source. That's great. They would love this program. But we need to work on getting economic development into the city. For example, in 2013, there was a ballot initiative that I don't think the city has ever used once. Everyone always talks about that the CRA has all these powers to give tax exemptions and things like that over 10 years and everything. City of Delray Beach has that same power, citywide. They've never used it. It passed in the ballot in March of 2013. I know because I put it on the ballot. I lost the election, but I won that one, and we've not used it once. That's a business incentive to try to get people to move into the city. We have not used it once. And I would put it to you that no one up here probably even knew it existed in the code. It does. As I said, 2013, the ballot initiative, I actually have it. I actually printed it out. It was hard to find. Anyway, doesn't matter what it said.
May I agree with you, and about the business development, and that's why I'm so eager to protect our commercial tax base, because that's where the businesses will be. At one point, we had about, I think it was 12 acres out on Lake Ida and Congress, and I fought tirelessly to retain the commercial land use on that, because there were businesses that we could have enticed to come in here. So on that note,
let me read you the
I think
question.
we need to start protecting our commercial tax base and look for what type of businesses can come into the areas that we have that are.
I mean, and the Congress
commercial
Avenue corridor
clusters.
hasn't had any update in quite a while. This is what the provision said. Shall the City Commission be authorized to grant, pursuant to Section 3, Article 7 of the State Constitution, property tax exemptions to new businesses and expansions of existing businesses that are expected to create new full-time jobs in the City of Delray Beach? City of Delray Beach, not the CRA district. This is the same powers. We've not used it. So I would like to see the Economic Development Office start pursuing relationships with, as I said, if we don't even have the relationships with the Palm Beach County Business Board. So it's just shocking to me that I looked at your list, and it's a great list, but they're not business development people. We need to get business development here. We need to find ways to get corporate relocations for the small to medium-sized businesses to decide to locate themselves out on Congress, which is a great corridor and should be. I know there's traffic and everybody can talk about the traffic, but these people will be living and working here, and you're bringing their families here. And if you want your schools to get better, well, you start getting more higher level jobs in this city. Your schools will get better. Everything rises. So, I mean, as I said, I appreciate all the work you've done, but I really think you need to spend some time reading well, even just ECP Goal 4, which is business climate and competitiveness, going through everything that we're supposed to be doing. I'm not seeing it. I mean, as I said, workforce development is great. We're number one. Business development, not so good.
Mr. Mayor.
That's my comment. Yes, please.
Rob and I have been strategizing about some of that. That's really what the relationships with the commercial brokers are about. We don't have a lot of land here for other things, and we don't necessarily know where the available spaces are. So the idea is to develop the relationships with the commercial brokers so that we're working hand in hand with them as they're trying to attract people to the properties that they can control. Then we can help from there. Also, if I am not mistaken, that referendum was for a tax abatement. I think those were only granted for 10-year periods and needed to be renewed.
Oh, no.
So,
well, no, this was the tax provision. You could give them a tax break would only cover a 10-year period, but this provision did not die in 10 years.
I think the provision needed to be renewed. I'm not certain. I will certainly make sure.
It certainly was not
what I'm
the
saying
way
is
I
correct.
drafted it. So, And I put it on the ballot, so I know this subject.
So we'll look at it. Well, part of the problem with using that, and one of the reasons I know it wasn't used here, is we really didn't have any land that somebody was going to do anything.
You know,
And a
I have
lot
to
of
tell
our-
you, I have to tell you, I mean, I appreciate the comment. I think I disagree with you. Let me just kindly say I disagree with you, because it suggests that we haven't had the opportunity to develop things along Atlantic Ave, along Congress and elsewhere in the city for the last 10 years. Look, we're an attractive place. People want to come to Delray, but we have other incentives that we could be using, and we should be looking at corporate relocations because other people are. You know, so we should be looking
And
at
again,
that.
part of the relationship with the commercial brokers is to know what they have and what the owners are looking to attract there.
I'm not
Because
sure
there are
commercial brokers have the vision on what kind of businesses should be moving in and out of a city, with respect. And I love commercial brokers. My livelihood depended on them for many years. So, you know,
we do need to know what's out there. We don't have a clear idea of what's out there, what's in play or in process.
but we also
and
don't
that's
know
why those
we also don't know what
relationships-
people are looking for. And it's great to figure out what land you have available. If you don't understand what businesses are looking for, then how do you attract them?
And we do have. There was a business that was looking here at one time. Rob had found them, brought them in. They were looking to do manufacturing. We just didn't have any place to put them.
Right.
There's literally no place in the city to put
Yeah,
them.
because our land use is less than 1% now because we converted that over to residential. And that is one of the most critical things is where is the land and what is the use? So then it is a lot that factors into this. And I share your desire, but believe me, this has been an ongoing battle. And that's why every one of these decisions about changing zoning and land use have to be considered very thoughtfully. I really think our land use should be a 4-1 vote or a minimum of 4 supermajority.
We'll get to that at some
So
point.
can I add something real quick, Mayor?
Certainly.
So I do think we actually have a lot of Class A office space still downtown that needs tenants. I know the IPIC building has been looking for people for a while. Is it full now? I know it had been. What about Atlantic Crossing? Is there space there? I mean, is there any of this office space coming online that still needs tenants for it? I know there had been for a while. Is it all pretty much full at this point?
And that's part of Rob's mission to go out and visit with
Yeah.
businesses, which includes the ownerships, as well as working with commercial brokers to see what's being marketed out
Right.
there, so that we can be a part of the play.
And I know that what was the fitness company that just came in? That's along.
TRX.
Yeah, TRX. Like that, I'd love to see more operations like that come here to put their headquarters here. That was a big deal for us. But as far as more commercial land in Delray, I wish we could. I mean, when we've been talking about Congress Avenue forever, about that being a corridor. I mean, I ran on that, frankly. And then we got data last year that was basically told us that the market won't support that it's going to have to be residential, which is not what I wanted. None of us up here did, but we're not going to ignore what the market will support. And so
There's no
we
question.
are going to have limited space. That being said, I obviously think there are opportunities here. I think that we should be talking with Kelly Smallridge and the BDB and the Economic Council and some of these other groups that maybe could partner with us, and they know what companies are kind of looking around. But to fit that puzzle together, we do have to know exactly kind of what's available. Like, what do we really have room for? Where do we have room for bigger type, company headquarters? I don't know that we really have a lot of options left. To be honest.
I understand the issue, and I think that when the Business Development Board really doesn't even look at Delray Beach. I mean, I have to be honest, I've had this conversation with Kelly, but maybe that's our fault. So I think that we need to get more aggressive with them, saying that, when they have people come in town, we want them to visit Delray.
What did Adam Frankel say? I think he said Delray's open for business. Like, that was his whole thing. How do we get that message out?
Because there still is a lot of room along Congress, and we have some sites, as we know, on Lake Ida there. There's got to be some way to get somebody in here to help us with this. I mean, there are other areas that are turning residential that we can't do anything about because that's just the reality of the marketplace. But there are others that still may be salvageable, and we should try to salvage them.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to have the opportunity to work with all involved, notably the Office
That's fine.
of
I was
Economic
closing the
Development,
conversation anyway.
to outline strategies and a path forward. I will have a summary perhaps in the next few weeks or so in terms of what that looks like, to include a follow-up presentation from respective leadership pertaining to specific recommendations for your review and consideration.
Fine, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much, Rob. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jeff.
Thank you.
And now the first presentation by Henry Dakowitz. Did you want to sit or stand?
I'll stand, thank you.
Okay. Preliminary quarter year-end financial review.
Thank you. This is my first quarterly presentation, but you've seen the other 3 quarters for the year. So it's the last 4th quarter ending September 30, and it's also the end of the year. The adopted budget, that's the original numbers that were set last year, October 1st, with a total of all funds, $416.84 million. And the final amended budget, as of 12/3, we still have numbers that haven't been finalized. There are adjusting entries that will be entered as our auditors go through. Right now it's at $474.34 million. If we look at the general fund, revenue by type, we did it in sequence size order based on the adopted budget, taxes, charges for services, going on down to other sources and judgments. The adopted budget revenue was $184.9 million. The final amended budget, $191.385. Actual as of December 3rd through the end of September 30, the total revenue was $179.7 million. The major difference for the total, it's an underfunding of revenue by $11.7 million, and that's almost identical to the drawdown from reserves of $11.7 million. The positive, favorable, and unfavorable variances offset, and as I understand our accounting system, after all the entries are made, a closing entry to zero out and balance out. If there's a surplus, it would add to the reserves. If it's a deficit, it will be funded by reserves. So we're short on the revenue by that 11.7. When we look at expenditures by type, again, size order, starting with personnel services, adopted budget was on $184.9 million. The amended budget, a balanced budget, $191.4 million. The actual as of September 30, but taken off our computer systems December 3rd, we're at $186.1 million. So on the expense side, we have a $5.3 million favorable variance. Our actual expenditures are lower than the final amended budget. So if the revenue was short by 11.1 and our expenses are less than budget by 5.2, we will need about a $5.9 million drawdown to balance the budget at the end of the year. But again, I warn you, there are some adjusting entries we know are coming. Specifically, we have GASB 87 adjustments for leased assets, and we also have entries based on our OPEB projections. Here are the reserves. We started October 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year. The reserves, according to our consolidated financial report with our audited financial statements, had $48.7 million in reserves. The way the system works here at Delray Beach, we look at the total revenues, total expenditures, and the differential will adjust the reserves. As I just showed you, the revenues were $179.7, the projected expenditures $186.1, leaving a deficit of $6.4 million. We would have to reduce our balance sheet reserves, and we would project that the year-end September 30, 2024 reserves would be $42.3 million. That's what I'm used to calling rainy day fund. It's the unreserved, unappropriated reserves. I understand there was a policy made about what the reserves should be, 21 to 25% of projected expenditures. So if we look at that $42.3 million projected reserves and compare it to the 2025 adopted budget, which was done Same time period, as of October 1st, budget less transfers of 181 million, we're looking at 23.31% reserves as a percentage of those expenditures, right in the middle of what that recommendation is for the policy. Again, with the other adjustments that might occur if there are additional expenditures, then that percentage would go down. We would have to draw down some more reserves to cover that. Okay. Here, it's a busy slide a little bit, expenditures by department. The good news, the column second from the right is favorable or unfavorable variances. Because these are expenditures, when actual is less than budget, that's a favorable variance. If there's a negative, it means the actual expenditures were greater than the budget. Sadly, the only negative is finance for $400. I'd like to claim that I had nothing to do with that, but if it's $400, I'll kick it in and balance the budget. The good news is these are the components department by department that compose the $5.3 million favorable variance on the expenditure side of the general fund. Here's some other revenue and expense data from selected funds. We have the building fund. I'm going to have to flip so that I could read these numbers. Building fund, 9.4 million in revenues. Expenditures are expected at 6.7 million. That would be a 2.8 million favorable variance. Sanitation fund, 9.2 million in revenue, 8.7 in expenses, about a $0.5 million favorable variance. Water and sewer funds, which are the biggest non-general fund, we have 44.95 million in revenues projected, 41.53 in expenses, so that's 3.4 million favorable. And stormwater utility, 5.5 million revenues, 3.45 expenses for a 2.07 million favorable variance. So the non-general funds seem to be doing well as well. Just looking at the assets that PFM, Public Financial Management, Asset Management, manages on our behalf. They have bank deposits, 27.76 million, liquidity portfolio, which is a little bit beyond bank deposits. They're very liquid, high quality, treasury securities, etc. 21.6 million for a total of 49 million of very liquid available assets. The core managed portfolio, 119 million. So as of September 30, total cash and investments, 168.4 million. Looking at their returns, again, I apologize. It was part of a printed portfolio and the numbers are a little bit small. But on the bottom, what they're trying to show is by duration of their management period, what their returns are. If you look at the last two lines in gray, we have the returns for the portfolio versus the returns for the benchmark. So at the 3-month period, we earned 2.9. The benchmark was 2.87. So that's a 3 basis point positive variance for their management. As you move out the yield curve, you should expect larger differentials. At the 1 year for the portfolio, 7.1 versus 6.74, a 36 basis point positive variance. At 3 years, it's 175 versus 133, a 35 basis point variance, positive. 5 years, 185, 152, 33 basis point positive. And for 10 years, 169, 142, a 27 basis point variance. So it looks like over the years, there's been positive variance to the benchmarks. PFM is an excellent name in the management business. So we have quite a bit of money with them, and they seem to be doing well versus the benchmarks. Any questions?
Commissioner Long? Commissioner Markert?
Nope.
Commissioner Gasol?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to sitting down with you individually. I have a ton of notes, but is it concerning to you that our revenue was down 11.7 million? Because I found that even though our expenses went down 5.3, we still have a fair disparity. So we find ourselves every year reaching into our reserves.
Well, it starts with the budget process.
Right,
To me, the budget is where our projections are going to be,
correct,
and the actual comes in versus the budget.
right,
From what I see here, in the adopted budget, the drawdown was 7.3 million,
right,
but along the way during the year, it was determined, and I guess you people vote for it, that that budget should be increased to 11.7 million. And that's the entire difference now. All the other revenues were right on target.
okay,
Okay,
fabulous.
the issue is that reserves are a balance sheet item.
Right,
They're there for a rainy day or for special purposes. If you budget to use the reserves on a regular basis, eventually you run out of it.
right.
Okay, cyclical, traditional finance would say during the good years, you run a surplus, you take your budget reserves and you increase it for the future times when it might be going down. And that's the concept with budgeting. And I think that's something that as we get into the budgeting for this coming year, we'll look at. But what I'm pleased with is that the rest of the city is running right on target with what the amended budget was.
Great, thank you. Because we hadn't typically we did not utilize our reserves for the day-to-day balancing of our general fund budget, but over the last course of 3 years, we've been doing that to approximately the tune of $6 or $7 million. And myself, I'd like to figure out how to get away from that. Do you recommend, we have a 0-1 general fund, do you recommend a 0-2 emergency fund to put some money in, or do you think that's unnecessary?
I think if the purpose is for emergencies, that's what your reserves are for.
Right.
I'm not sure setting up a separate fund would
Matters.
accomplish anything.
Got it. Just
Okay,
you knowing it's
You've
there.
already designated, here are the reserves, this is what they're for. We only
Right.
draw them down when you determine it's appropriate. I think what's more fundamental is looking at the expenditures to deliver the services of a quality that you would try to do. The problem is the revenue sources, and we have to find revenue sources that can deliver that quality, and that's when the rubber hits the road.
I thank you. I really appreciate what you're saying. And then the last question is, what do you think about zero-based budgeting in larger departments? I was speaking to a gentleman, very smart gentleman, Byron, and he said, why aren't you zero-based budgeting? And I said, great question, because when our former auditor was here, she said we should take the larger departments and zero-based budget. Perhaps you don't want to do that every year because I think that would be a lot of work, but maybe you take a large department and you do it every 2 to 3 years. Sort of start from the bottom and build up, because we have to figure out why our revenues are increasing so substantially when in fact, like from 2014, we only have 50 more employees, but yet every year our budget is increasing by upwards of $11 million. So just things for you to think about for when we meet, and I welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Burns?
No questions, thank you.
Welcome.
Very positive words, positive variances, and right on target, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mayor.
Can I just ask Mr. Moore a question while we're on this budget subject? I did notice, because I went through the statement somewhat thoroughly, we're still at the point where with the fire, we are experiencing a great deal of overtime, call-out overtime. The police have improved tremendously in the call-out overtime. I believe your percentage is like 14. The fire is at 20%, so $2.9 million call-out overtime. Have we implemented any kind of there was a question, he wouldn't know the answer to this, but of how we were processing call-out overtime. So in other words, who is it available to? What mechanism is being used? So in other words, at one time, my understanding was hypothetical police department, I'm calling out, you're on vacation, I call you, hey, I'm going to be calling out, you could take my spot. You're on vacation, you're getting some other benefit. That was my understanding of how it was functioning. But the call-out system did not put somebody back in the lottery to be then picked out randomly by those who are available. How are we going to get the overtime a little bit better under control? Because we've been talking that language for years.
You're speaking about the fire rescue department specifically.
I'm speaking
that
fire
concern.
rescue specifically in terms of the 20% overtime, and just asking what procedurally, how is that working? Because it seems to be the call-out overtime that is.
Yes, ma'am. I'm currently working with Fire Rescue Chief Ronald Martin to come up with some very specific strategies that we'll be sharing with you all in advance of the next quarterly financial report presentation. I think some improvements to that effect will be demonstrated as a result. So that will be forthcoming. And I appreciate your commentary relative to what's been done on the police department side, because they've heeded the direction that we've offered relative to doing what they can to manage overtime in that regard. So some similar applications are being made in fire rescue department, not to mention to tailor the shift differential in that regard as well. So please stand by. We will be offering some updates in terms of specifically how that works. And of course, Mr. Martin and members of his leadership team are working with my office to get to that place. So we look forward to offering an update in terms of specifics and to achieve a downward trajectory relative to overtime commitments.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speaking of police and fire, we
Yes.
have I told you everybody can hear me.
Hello?
We're back.
We're back.
Hello?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It died for a second. So, briefly, my interest was to simply have a presentation from leadership of both police and fire rescue concerning the wellness check initiatives, because during a recent city commission meeting, some fairly critical comments were made relative to the process and practice here in the city of Delray Beach. And working with both police and fire rescue leadership, we thought we'd take a second to offer some clarity as to how this actually is quite effective and serves Delray Beach as a community quite well. However, before I offer those gentlemen a couple minutes to offer the presentation to that effect, I wish to offer a special recognition at this time, if I may be permitted, Mr. Mayor, via city manager discussion items, and that is to recognize Boynton Beach Police Chief Joe DiGiulio, who is in position this evening to offer a brief yet meaningful presentation to the City Commission, but quite frankly, the City of Delray Beach as a whole. Vice Mayor Julie Casal is busting up laughing down there because I think she understands why we've made that arrangement. Chief Joe
In future,
DiGiulio,
though,
please come forward, sir.
in future, I would
You
appreciate
guys
if you
are
let
rough.
the chair know that you're going to be having a different kind of a presentation other than what's on the agenda.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mayor. This was a bit of a
I
surprise.
did, and I'm more surprised than anybody.
I think Mr. Long requested this specifically, though. Yeah. Thank
Even
you for
more
coming.
than
We
you.
appreciate you. Sorry.
Chief, good
Chief.
to see you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I am here willingly.
You weren't tased.
Obviously, want to say what a great police chief you have. He's fantastic, great leader, innovator in our industry. Those things you want me to say? Or are there a few others? Okay.
Exchange the cash off premises, would you? If there are laws of that.
So there was a picture that was taken at our softball game, November the 2nd. So the Boynton Beach the Police Department was challenged by Delray
Oh,
Police
now I know
Department
what
for
we're
a
doing.
softball tournament.
Yeah, okay.
First year that
Oh,
we've,
yes, I know why
we've
we're here.
participated. Yeah.
We whipped their butt.
I was under the impression that the Chiefs had to play too. And then I found out that Chief Major, obviously is a little bit smarter than me. He decided not to play for injury reasons. I decided to play. And there was a picture of after the game, the Chief and I. Here I am, sweaty, dirty, bloody, with a torn hamstring. And he's clean, handsome as always, not a scratch on him. So I learned a lot from Chief Major. But it was a great opportunity to have that type of event with the police department. Boynton Beach Police Department at Delray has always had a great relationship. We do share some of the problems and we try to collectively address them as well. The chief is a great guy. Kind of like myself, not a great guy, but as a chief that has come up through the ranks, and have been internal source candidates, having a good understanding of the community we serve and the department we run. I find that we are probably the dying breed out there, but it's something that goes to say for the city and the leadership that you maintain your chief for 20. I don't want to come out of the bag. How many years? 29 years.
Wow.
I think that's great, and we do offer a perspective when you're with an organization that long. Sometimes we don't have the ability to see the things that we don't know. That's why we have great teammates and also great partners as well. So I just wanted to say how I appreciate our relationship with the Delray Beach Police Department and the city of Delray. And next year he'll be coming to my commission meeting because I would make him play.
No, we'll see you here next year, Chief.
Yeah.
If I could just have 30 seconds. Chief is a fantastic guy. He's, in my eyes, a rock star. Just a super down-to-earth. What you see is what you get, and I love that about him. I appreciate you coming in today. It was kind of like a little fun bet. The losing team, the chief had to come in, and I really appreciate the relationship, as he stated, that we have with Boynton Beach. The collaboration that we have with our sister city right next door just makes us that much stronger and that much better. So thank you so much. I do appreciate you as a friend and as a colleague, so thank you.
And by the way, our chief is a good baseball player. I think he did you a favor by not playing. The loss would have been even greater.
We don't know that for a certain.
I'm speculating.
Sir.
Hey, I'm the chair. I can rule you out of order. So.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the final item via City Manager's discussion item, Section 5. Both Chief Ronald Martin, Chief Russ Major, if you can offer a brief yet substantive commentary on the clarity relative to wellness checks. Gentlemen, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I'll go first to guide this discussion. So we've been asked to do a quick protocol review on our wellness check programs. So wellness check program is categorized into a call for service from one or both of our entities to check on the wellness, health, and status of one of our community members. Typically, when these calls are initiated, it is initiated by somebody who is not physically on the property or at the location. Most often, it's from an out-of-state concerned family member who hasn't been able to raise their loved ones either through email, text messaging, cellular device, or landline. When we respond to any emergency event, to keep it very simple and to use layman's terms, I'll say there's two types of call. There's the greeted call, where the majority of the time we are arriving on scene, we know where the emergency is, we know where the caller is, and the non-greeted time where our men and women are showing up, and it's like, okay, who's calling? Where's the emergency? What am I here to do? So there are various steps. We know that in the realm of public media relations and media reporting, there are calls, there are false calls that come up, and our PSAP, our dispatch centers, have very specific protocols. When someone does call 911 for any type of service, our PSAP, our dispatchers will look at where that caller's at, where their location is at, what their name is, and a callback number. When our men and women arrive to these incidents and they're not greeted, most of the time under those situations, it's because somebody has fallen inside their home or they've had some type of an emergency event and the door will be unlocked. They've been able to crawl over, unlock a door. Our personnel are trained. When you arrive to those situations, any situation, you announce your presence. Hello, this is Ron, Delray Beach Fire Rescue. We're here. Do you need help? Where are you at? And if we're not greeted, we have that open door or unlocked window we're going in, that is a low frequency, high risk event to our personnel as well as the community, because we don't know what we're going into. We may be going into a hostile, aggressive animal. We may be going into surprising somebody from a dead sleep who's armed with a firearm underneath their pillow. So they're low frequency, high risk events to both the community and us. Therefore, we do all our due diligence announcing our presence. If we can't gain access, we have our PSAP immediately call back the caller and try to obtain additional information or contact with that person inside the structure who may need our help. From that point, if we cannot get back in call with or in touch with the caller, we will start a secondary assessment where we're knocking on windows, announcing our presence, looking to see if we see a disabled or visibly distressed person, which is not uncommon, and to find somebody having a stroke, a heart attack, a broken leg, who cannot physically help themselves or let us in. If we don't see any of that from a fire rescue standpoint, our protocols, which align with national best practices, we immediately elevate that to a next level supervisor to do their assessment, as well as involve law enforcement for them to do their law enforcement assessment. After that point, if the decision collaboratively between law enforcement and fire rescue is determined that there is potentially a savable life or somebody who may need our assistance, then using the least intrusive, least destructive method, we are going to gain entry into that structure for the purposes of preserving life. The city is very proactive through our public safety departments in trying to mitigate these situations through our community risk reduction initiatives, encouraging our residents to sign up for the Roper Lockbox, which is a residential box that only public safety has access to, that we're not breaking a window, we're not breaking a door. We can use a key to open that door and gain access. But unfortunately, sometimes we're wrong, but we're wrong because we're trying to save a life. These policies, these procedures, these trainings that our people go through annually are vetted out of public safety failing to meet the mark and failing to take all the due diligence steps that both police and fire do in these situations, and left the scene with somebody ultimately needing our help in succumbing to their injury or illness. With that, Chief Major.
A lot of what the chief had mentioned is duplicitous to what I was going to say, so rather than drag you through that, the main reason why we are here today is we had a call with a family member where a niece was calling on behalf of an aunt, and we had no reason to believe anything else other than the niece was telling us that she hadn't had contact with the aunt for 5 days. And the car was outside, the windows were checked, the door was knocked on, phone calls were made, and we did our due diligence to ensure that somebody was there, or if nobody was there, we had to make sure life safety was in play. We were being called there for the purpose, or medical was being called there for the purpose of a life safety and the concerned family member who was directing us. So in this particular case, entry was actually gained, but with all the options that the chief had mentioned, and we went through it all, and we both weren't there personally, but we're acting on behalf of our respective agencies. But I can assure you protocols and due diligence was followed, and it turns out that the woman that was in the house was actually not suffering any kind of medical condition. But we acted on behalf of a family member in good faith. You know, you can flip this around and Monday morning quarterback it, but if we didn't do what we did, you know, let's tell a different narrative. There was somebody in the house, nobody answered the door, we tried to make the phone call, and we just said, you know what, we can't make contact, and we leave. And it turns out someone was suffering some medical condition. So damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of scenario, but I think yielding on the side of caution, we did the best we could with the information that we were presented. And if you have any questions, we'll be willing to
Thank you,
answer.
Chief. Are there any questions from the commission?
Yes.
For either Chief Angela? Excuse me, Mr. Burns.
So the procedures that both of you just shared with us, are these written procedures, and are they followed to the letter every time you go out on a call?
Well, ma'am, I could tell you we do have written procedures. They're contained in our forcible entry policies. We train on these policies frequently throughout the year. Can I tell you always and never? We always shy away from saying that in public safety, but I can tell you that we did review this particular incident, and in this incident, our fire rescue staff did appear to be compliant with the policy and with their training. So we do attempt 100% compliance, but I wasn't there, but I can tell you that the expectation is 100% compliance, and our training reflects that as well.
So what is the procedure once you've come in and you've you had to force entry into this particular home. What's the policy in assisting the resident in making the repairs to however you made your entry, and how long of a process is that?
Typically, anytime we make entry, we will attempt to do a quick fix with the tools and resources that we have to secure that occupancy, so it's not left unsecured. So if we can throw up tarps, if we can facilitate contact with a vendor to make a repair, we try to do the best we can immediately to restore that property. We've had incidents, as I was looking into this, where we've had people be able to repair locks, be able to put up plywood over a window, as well as tarps and other things of that nature to preserve and protect the property the best we can.
Do you know if that was done in this instant?
I don't know if it was or not, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, I would just say that I did have to utilize this program for my mom out of state, and I think I know when these situations when the family member needs you to get in there, and my mom had actually had a stroke, so I was so appreciative of the fact that they got there and were helping her. So thank you, gentlemen, because I know it's hard.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that sentiment. You guys have to make really hard decisions out there. And I know it's a crapshoot sometimes. I don't envy your role out there. And I think more times than not, you're probably saving a life rather than causing an inconvenience. And I think we all value the hard work you guys do and the difficult protocols you guys have to follow, and then sometimes make very tricky ad hoc decisions. So thank you for your due diligence and that of your officers out there.
Yeah, and I saw this in action in New York State with my dad, and he was having a medical issue, and the fire rescue team got in there, and thank God they did. So I applaud you for what you do. I know those situations are scary. You don't know what you're going to find, but I think you're doing the right thing by us and by the community, and stay safe doing it.
Thank you, Chiefs.
Thank you.
You finished?
I yield at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Right. We come now to the time for public comment for any agenda or non-agenda items. Those of the public wishing to speak, please come up, give your name and address, come to the lectern, and you will each have 3 minutes. This is our public comment section for those of you.
Good evening. Deborah Walker, 1312 Northwest 2nd Street here in Delray. Why is Pompey Park pool closed? When will the pool open again? I want to spend more time in the pool, but if it is closed, that is difficult. So what options do I have? The pool at Delray Swim and Tennis Center. After finding Pompey Park closed, I drove the 4 miles versus the quarter mile to Pompey. While the Swim and Tennis Center is not my first choice, I do not have another choice at this time. I thoroughly enjoy being the only two-legged person in the pool today. To my surprise, there were 6 additional 4-legged iguanas sunbathing on the pool deck when I arrived. I was not happy, needless to say. 2 of the 6 were huge. 2 of them put their tails in the water while I was in the water. I did not see any iguanas in the morning when I visited the pool in the morning, but I may not always make it in the morning. I would like to enjoy the pool at Pompey Park, but if I have to go to Delray Swim and Tennis, please find another location for the iguanas to sunbathe. I don't think they paid the $80 for a pool pass. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. I have a solution for that problem. Laura Simon, Downtown Development Authority. I have a 100-pound Rottweiler who loves iguanas to catch them, so maybe we'll bring her over, Coconut. Laura Simon, Downtown Development Authority, and wanted to share with you all, we have some really good news in our downtown. I just came from the Seagate Hotel of their unveiling of their new multi-million-dollar renovation. Beautiful, to the beach club, to the entire hotel. The golf club was renovated and unveiled last year, and it is stunning. It's already a great addition to our community in the hospitality industry, which is strong for Delray Beach. And we also last week had, or a week ago, I can't keep up, last week actually was the Fairfields unveiling of their renovation. These hotels are not old, and they're investing millions of dollars because of the investment that we have here and the growth in our tourism business and our economic development thrive here in our community. Post-COVID and pre-COVID, we've been very strong. We were going into COVID with very strong outlook. And then also the Hyatt Place also just unveiled their renovation too. And those, we're really grateful for that. There is definitely, that's the market driven. Those are long time coming. Seagate has been working on those for a very long time, but it's stunning, and I highly recommend everyone to go by there and take a look at that. It's beautiful. And then also just wanted to answer some questions really regarding the office. Some questions that were brought up at the presentations regarding office in downtown specifically. We're doing really well. Pep Capital's got only just maybe 10,000 square feet left in their project, and they've got 3 major headquarters that are going to be there, which is fantastic for us in downtown, and it's close to 200,000 square feet. Atlantic Crossing is 100% leased. You probably heard my voicemail that just came in, but it's 100% leased there. Their commercial or their office, which is fantastic, as well as we are seeing strong restaurant and retail coming in. We are hospitality, so we're really grateful to partner with the city on their initiative for the hospitality industry, because that has been something that was brought up at restaurant meetings and merchant meetings back last year, is we asked what can we do, and that was an outcry from them, is like, help us with the workforce, we need help with that. So I'm glad that the city is doing that and that initiative, and we're really happy to partner with that. And then lastly, I just wanted to wish everyone a very happy holiday season. We do have a tribute series concert at Old School Square on Thursday night, and also a Disney tribute holiday event on the 28th, which they're both ticketed, and we're really happy to celebrate this holiday season. So Merry Christmas.
Hi, Stephanie Emmelman, Delray Beach Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to talk to you today because we have a lot of our partners here in the room, and I wanted to talk about 2025 as being the year of the small business. The Chamber's partnering with the city, the CRA, the DDA, and the SBDC to increase awareness among our small business community of the resources that are available from all of our organizations. So we aim to amplify each other's messaging about our products and services and events that are aimed at the small business community through a year-long coordinated campaign. So you'll be hearing a lot more from all of us as we do our outreach to small businesses and as we encourage our residents to support our small businesses all year long.
Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Julia Cadell. I'm 1015 Anchor Point. I am the co-founder and executive director of the Miracle League of Palm Beach County and a proud Delray Beach resident for 26 years. For those who are unfamiliar with our organization, the Miracle League provides individuals with special needs the opportunity to play baseball in a supportive and inclusive environment while fostering a strong sense of community for their families. First, I'd like to thank the City Commission for your past and ongoing support. It's partnership like yours that we've been able to grow and make a meaningful difference. Next year, we're thrilled to celebrate 20 years of serving the special needs community right here in Delray Beach. Over the years, we've identified new and growing needs. For example, this year we hosted our first Halloween party for athletes with special needs in collaboration with a dedicated supporter. To ensure safety, we had an entire block shut down, creating a welcoming, sensory-friendly space for children on the spectrum, as well as those with adaptive and mobility challenges. Neighbors were thrilled to participate, setting up in their driveways to accommodate children using wheelchairs and walkers, and their kindness was a beautiful reminder of the strong community we have here. Hosting an event like this comes with costs, something we hadn't fully anticipated, but we simply couldn't say no. The growing need is here to provide support for a small grassroots organization like ours, helping us offset the costs of hosting inclusive events like our Halloween party. Without support, these costs can become a boundary or deterrent for small organizations to host events like this. With over 100,000 individuals with special needs living in Palm Beach County alone, the demand for safe, inclusive events continue to grow. And as a small nonprofit, we kindly ask the city to partner with us to ensure that these events remain safe, accessible, and available for all members of the community. Supporting small grassroots organizations like ours ensures that we can meet this critical need to serve our community effectively. Additionally, at the tree lighting event, we attended with dear friends of ours who lost their son this year. They shared with us this was their very first tree lighting ever because the wheelchair just would not fit through the large crowds. This experience brought light to us a greater need for accessibility and inclusive spaces for the large city events. Many of our families cannot attend because of the wheelchairs or walkers and adaptive equipment. So moving forward, I ask that the city consider the special needs population when designing event layouts that ensure accessibility for all residents. And I'd be happy to assist in any way I can make this happen. I want to thank you for your time and your support, and wish everybody Merry Christmas and happy holiday season. Thank
I
you.
missed your opening day this year, but I went last year and it was great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the support.
I'll look forward to it next year.
Thank you. I'll let you know when it is.
Thank you.
Good evening. Joe Cortez, on-site administrator for Delray Full Service. Happy to be here. I just wanted to give a huge thank you and shout out to the economic development team for fostering partnerships. We had our, as Rob mentioned earlier, we had our graduation today with home health aid students. We had 13 graduates. We had our partners, several of our partners there who regularly hire the students from our graduating classes. And again, thanks to the continuing growth of partnerships, Amanda from Baptist Health was there. Thanks to the facilitation with Rob and the city, we added them to our partnership, and hopefully we'll be sending some of our students to Bethesda and some of the other hospitals that they are a part of. So again, just want to say thank you and happy holidays to all of you guys.
Thank you very much.
George Long, 46 North Swinton Avenue. As an objective observer, impartial, making an analysis of your municipal government action over the year, I'd like to say you guys are doing all right. Keep it up.
Thank you very much.
And the staff also. Okay, while I'm at it, the in-lieu parking thing particularly, staff drew up a really great thing, and you guys did good approving it. So, all right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Long. Are there any other members of the public wishing to address the commission? Seeing none, public comment is closed. The consent agenda. Let me ask you a quick question here, and I missed it because this agenda is different than the one I saw earlier. Missy, I'm seeing, City Manager, I'm seeing that an item, the 6K5, the approval of the resolution, because the 6K5 in my book is different than this 6K5, because I kind of go through my book when I go through and I'm looking at different items. The 6K5 in your book, that was it's the same. So is it? I'm guessing, is this the one that was here last week?
It is. That's correct.
Yeah. All right, and we nixed it then, because I have nothing in my backup.
You didn't nix it. You deferred it to this week so that the visits could be done, which
Okay.
they were.
Which they were, and
Yes.
we're all satisfied.
We are very satisfied.
Okay. Any comment?
No, just I can't emphasize enough how frustrating it is that I was out all day today. And I woke up this morning to changes to our agenda. There were items as of last night that still did not have attachments. I feel that if we cannot get that stuff on at least, 24 hours before, then pull it. Because the stuff that we know we have to hear, the backup material is there, the stuff that has date specific and what have you. But it's not good for our residents if we're not reading all this information. And to be honest with you, I believe there were 4 or 5 amendments, some minor and some pretty substantial, to this agenda, either late last night or early this morning, that I did not have any opportunity to look at today because I was unavailable.
Thank you for bringing it up. That's actually one of the first items going to be on my commissioner comments, but
Sorry.
I will echo, no, I think it's important for all of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, understood, duly noted, and we'll act appropriately.
We need a time frame, though. I think we've had this conversation 4 or 5 times, so I think we need to impose a specific time frame specific. If it is not on, some, would you say 24?
We'll get there. Trust me, we'll get there at the end of the meeting.
Okay, you want to do it?
No, I don't care. I just want to.
I could pinch it for you.
I want to get the.
Oh, pardon me. I apologize.
You've answered the question.
Thank you.
So, if everyone is satisfied with the answer, then I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, 5-0. Regular agenda. Now, we have 2 items on the regular agenda, 7A and 7B, which are quasi-judicial. And so I'm going to read the quasi-judicial rules here, if I can find them, which I can't, which is unusual. No, here it is. I got too many papers. My own fault for bringing all this stuff in. These instructions are going to apply to items 7A and 7B. These hearings shall be conducted in accordance with the quasi-judicial rules. The applicants in the city shall be allowed 15 minutes each to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The city commission, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not be legally made upon the personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be made on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether or not the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. Anyone wishing to speak on items 7A and 7B, please stand and be sworn.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Thank you all very much. Anthea, would you please enter the project file into the record?
Good evening, Anthea Geniotis, Development Services Director, and I'd like to enter file 2025-011 into the record.
All right, before we start, I'm going to ask for any disclosure of ex parte communication.
Yes, thank you. Lots of activity on the email, and I also spoke with Mr. Costello this afternoon.
Yes.
Same. I spoke with Mr. Costello and all of the email that we received.
Read all the emails, also had a brief conversation with Mr.
I also
Costello.
spoke with Mr. Costello today.
Same. I spoke with Mr. Costello yesterday.
Great. All right, would you like to read the, into the record, read the resolution 223-24? We'll do them separately, or do you want to?
They're separate properties, so
Okay,
we'll do them
fine.
separate. It's 233-24, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, granting waiver requests to sections 433Q2 and 433QQ2 of the Land Development Regulations to allow the existing residence located at 316 Andrews Avenue to be an accessory structure with a guest cottage for the residents located at 1137 North Vista Del Mar Drive, as more particularly described herein, providing an effective date and further purposes.
Thank you very much. To the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, City Attorney, staff, everybody. Jeff Costello, JC Planning Solutions, here representing the Maras at 316 Andrews Avenue. With me tonight is applicant Michelle Mara. The proposal are a couple waiver requests to the guest cottage requirements 433Q2 and accessory structure 433 QQ2. All right, so the property is located 316 Andrews Avenue. It's the corner lot, as you could see. It's a double lot. It goes from Waterway Lane to Vista Del Mar along Andrews Avenue. The yellow rectangle is the structure that's the subject this evening, almost centrally located within the overall lot. The just some photos, quite a few photos actually. So of the subject property, someone from Andrews Avenue here, from the corner of Waterway Lane and Andrews, you really don't even see the structure there. This is from Lang Street, and then the newly constructed home. This is from Waterway Lane, look at south. And then you have the new principal structure on Vista Del Mar. And then the surrounding properties to the west, of course, single family. And then to the north, Waterway Lane, not very visible, a low scale single family home. And then there's properties south of Andrews. And then this is east of Andrews. So the property, the combination of the lots, is a 3/4 of an acre property. The land use map designation is low density residential. The zoning map designation for the north parcel is R1 AAA, and for the south portion is R1 AA. This is the North Beach Seagate overlay district. At 316 Andrews Avenue, the proposed accessory structure was constructed in 2016. As stated in the staff report, it's 3,092 square feet. The new single-family home at 1137 Vista Del Mar, the primary principal structure is about 6,500 square feet, constructed just this past year. A CO is pending. The owner stayed, with the accessory structure while the new structure was under construction. Since 2015, both properties have actually been under single ownership. So 2015, the prior property owner basically built the accessory structure before us this evening. The proposal is to utilize the structure as an accessory structure to the primary structure, and to also establish the art studio on the first floor. She is an artist. And then the guest cottage, just to maintain the existing layout on the second floor and utilize that as a guest cottage. This does require waivers to the code to allow the 1,432 square foot guest cottage, where 700 is the max allowed. And then the accessory structure, the max is 40%, 48% is proposed, and we'll get into some of those details. In your backup there are definitions outlined or stated in the staff report. There's more specifics as far as the guest cottage section of the code. Basically, it can't occupy more than 1/20th of the lot, which would be about 1,500 square feet, but it cannot exceed 700 square feet. And then as far as accessory structure, again, it's the 40% max. There's the definitions that are in your backup regarding the accessory building structure, guest cottage, and a dwelling unit. So the subject structure was constructed in 2016. Interesting, even the building permit plans, the intent of the prior property owner had that identified as a guest house, which is interesting. And then so it was really the placement on the lot was a secondary to the primary residence. It's like right behind it. There are overhead utility lines going through here, and then there's an easement. Just to note on the building purpose, so there's at that time a wall was constructed around the entire property. So it's almost, it's crossing property lines. It was one permit, but it was one permit. So, and it was under one ownership. So more detail, as you can see here, there's the garage. There's an outdoor patio area that we'll discuss more at 600 square feet. And then this was the residence on the second floor. So the outdoor living area, that's included in the calculation for the overall square footage of the accessory structure. It's an outdoor area, it's unenclosed, there's a little kitchenette there as well as a fireplace. It's 600 square feet, it's open air. The second story is above it. And then to the right, you see the existing structure. If you were to try to modify that upper story, the stairs lead from the ground level up to this area into this kitchen area. They say that's about 700 square feet. If the principal structure and the accessory structure were connected, there would be no need for the waivers. This happens a lot in some situations, but in this case, we couldn't do that. The applicant couldn't do that. The overhead utility and easements between the two structures prevented that from occurring. As I stated, this is the area here where those easements and overhead lines, you can see them here. They run through the property. It's a picture from the backyard. There are situations where they were connected, but this we weren't able to do. These are just some examples. These are in the Beach Overlay District, a small one-story addition, very similar to what we have. And then here's the connection, but it's considered one structure. And this is the same here. This is all considered. This is a unit above the garage. And so with regard to that, the 600 square foot patio area is unenclosed and uninhabitable. It's on the first floor. You could see the photos, how open it is. And then the patio area is the finished floor elevation of that area. Really, it's uninhabitable space. It doesn't meet the requirements. In the future, if somebody would want to enclose it, they'd have to go through the permitting, elevate the finished floor. There's just some information on the screen with regard to the existing finished floor elevation. These do not currently comply. And then I think in December 20th, it's even going to be raised higher. Up to 8 feet is the minimum going to be required, as my understanding. So with regard to the waiver findings to be made, positive findings can be made in this unique situation for this existing structure with LDR section 2411B5. This will not create or adversely affect the neighboring area. It exists in its current condition, shall not significantly diminish the provision of public facilities, and to not create an unsafe situation. There is a fine as far as, and we don't believe this grants a special privilege in a similar situation for an existing structure on an existing lot. This property, again, it was combined. The applicant did file through the property appraisers to utilize it, combine it as one lot as a PCN, property control number. It is a homestead exempted property. Just to provide that information, the waivers will allow the existing structure to remain as is and utilize as an accessory structure. It'll be complementary to the surrounding area, and it's not introduce a new market rate house to the neighborhood, and it will not adversely affect the surrounding area, will not diminish the provision of facilities, and will not grant special privilege. So we respectfully request in this situation that the commission grant the waivers, and I'll be available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the city.
Okay, let's give the staff a second to pull my presentation up as well. So I think ultimately the issue at hand is more about the combination of two distinct single-family lots into one property, one homesteaded property. I'm hoping there's a presentation. If yours is there, mine should be. So sorry. It's okay. Okay, so all right, so the couple of points. The waiver, the characterization staff would put forward is that the waiver to these two LDR sections are that you are being asked to allow the existing residence that was constructed at 316 Andrews Avenue to be an accessory structure that contains a guest cottage for the residents located at 1137 North Vista Del Mar. We permit lots of adjacent properties that are owned by the same people, and some of them stay under the same people and some of them change. So at the time the permit, this structure went through BPOA review. It was constructed. It met all of the single family requirements, whether the intent was to have it as a guest house for the adjacent property or not. They were reviewed as two distinct separate properties because our code is very clear that single-family districts can only have one principal residential structure, hence the single-family part, right? So what we have physically here is a gross 3,092 square foot single-family home. It has a garage on the ground floor that is being used for other things, I suppose. The upstairs living area is 1,432 square feet, and that outdoor area that Mr. Costello showed you is sort of characterized as an outdoor living area, but it doesn't really count towards the guest cottage because it's really the living area we're talking about, which the code limits to 700 square feet as a maximum. The outdoor living area and the garage and all that comes into play when you view the entire structure as an accessory building, and that's why there's the second waiver for the 40%. We'll go over that quickly. For as far as the city is concerned, this property is located at the Vista Del Mar address of 1137 North Vista Del Mar Drive, and this property is located at 316 Andrews Ave. That's how all of our records are. We continue to work with our partners at the property appraiser to maybe figure out a way for us to say when they combine things whether or not the zoning remains consistent. So that's an ongoing conversation. So for the issue at hand, the definition of a guest cottage says that it's an accessory building that it can be connected to it can be contained within, and it's really for your own family members, non-paying guests, or people who are employed in your service. Even if it was connected, it's limited to 700 square feet. It's the accessory waiver that goes away, the 40% limitation, if it's all one principal structure. Then we just look at it, does it meet all of the other standards for lot coverage, setback, etc. So let's just turn to the guest cottage issue. The waiver in question wants to allow that 1,432 square feet to be a guest cottage for the main property, which is pretty significantly allowed. The accessory building structure, in the single-family districts, there's lots of different accessory buildings that are allowed, and like aviaries. I found a picture of one. Garages, sheds, pool cabanas. I think it's important to note there's no limit on the number you can have as long as you're meeting your lot coverage. And so just in this case, it's one building, so it's not a cumulative limit on the 40%. So I think that's important to consider, that if it was a freestanding garage and a guest cottage over here and an outdoor living area, that other waiver may not be needed. We would only be talking about the guest cottage if we want to characterize it like that. So at this point, it's just over the 40% at 48% by the numbers. We went back and forth on the outdoor living area, and it doesn't count towards the guest cottage, but it's in for the accessory. These are the LDR standards in terms of adversely affecting the neighborhood, diminishing. It's not unsafe. Certainly, both buildings are new construction and meet all the codes. I think ultimately the question turns to special privilege and whether or not it is a special privilege to unify these two distinct houses under one homesteaded ownership. Together, if you combine the lots, it is a large, in terms of the size of the structures, the property that results is certainly large enough to handle both of the structures. It's over 31,000 square feet, which is 2.5 times larger than the minimum required by the zoning district. The surrounding lots tend to be about 15,000 or slightly less than 15,000, so this is a larger compound. And this isn't the first conversation we've had about this type of configuration with applicants, and so I think there's a question of whether or not it's out of character in the neighborhood, or if this is a reasonable evolution of a family living arrangement. We're talking about accessory dwelling units in other parts of the city. Should scale be related to, the size of the property, things like that. Again, the number of accessory structures are not limited, and the area is not cumulative. I think the condition actually that the resolution is drafted is that staff would like to have a unit, if you approve this, to have a unity of title put in place, because it would be, there may be other improvements that come down the line, and we want to make sure the properties aren't subdivided back through the property appraiser, and now we have some improvements that have crossed, that are not consistent with setbacks or something like that. So something like that to make sure the city is part of these joining of properties and separating in the future. And so this is just a brief overview. I'm certainly available if you have any questions. And that completes my presentation. Thank you.
If there are any members of the public who wish to speak on this application, please come to the lectern, give your name and address. You will each have 3 minutes. No one wishing to speak. Fine, public comment is closed. Cross-examination or rebuttal to city staff?
Just no cross-examination or rebuttal, but just we do agree that, and in fact, we were going to file the unity of the title concurrent with the waiver request, but held off because, we have to go through this process. And I did fail to mention that there will be probably future improvements. The applicant discussed about a swimming pool north of the proposed accessory structure. And so there would be future improvements and available for any questions.
Great. Staff, any?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Then to the commission. Commissioner Long.
Yeah, I tend to be a pretty strong advocate for property rights, which is typically pretty obvious from my stances up here. In this, I can't imagine how this would adversely affect the neighboring area. I tend to want to support folks doing what they want on their own property as long as it doesn't impact things around them. My only concern typically is what precedent are we setting, and we are trying to kind of come up with some guidelines for ADUs right now. I don't technically see an issue with this project. I think this is reasonable. Literally the way it's designed at the back of the lot, it's kind of appears to be already set up for this arrangement, but I don't want to open the door to like a scenario where people can just buy their neighbor's house, unify the lots, and call that an accessory dwelling unit. I do think we need to have and we already do, but I want to make sure that as far as how we're developing our ADU regulations, that we make it clear that these structures, there is a limit to how large they can be based on the property size, et cetera. That all being said, in this particular case, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. But I do want to make it conditional based on that unity of title that you referenced. I'll just leave it at that for now. I'll let my colleagues speak.
Commissioner Casal?
I'll go next because I spoke with Mr. Costello. I spoke with staff about this. The question I had was, you could just leave it alone. We don't even have to be having the conversation because you can still put the pool in and your situation doesn't really change. In fact, some could argue it's better because then you have the option maybe in the future once we do our accessory dwelling unit ordinance to come in and it's more favorable because we're in a precarious position here. In speaking to our city attorney, I said, this feels like a special privilege, and you agreed. And I always worry when we're giving a special privilege because then, you're right, Mr. Long, someone else is going to come in and ask for it because that's what we see all the time. And then the first thing they say is, you gave it to so-and-so, and they're right. And it puts us in a bad position. And I almost feel, and please don't take offense to this, because I think that the individuals can accommodate what they want without even needing us. I'm almost apt to leave it alone until we advance this accessory dwelling ordinance further down the line, because this is concerning. And also, I know you said it's not going to be a rental. One of the things that always happens is we have no control once this is done in terms of what happens. Yeah, we have some control here because you have the easements through the middle of the property, but we really don't have control once we grant these kind of things. And in light of the fact that it's a special privilege, I'm concerned about that. I'm going to listen to what other people say, but I'm very concerned.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes, I'm also concerned about this being a problematic precedence because of the accessory dwelling ordinance that we're working on now and the meetings that we're having in the new year. But I wanted to just get a clarification. I heard you, Anthea, say that the structure is just over the limit at one point, and then I heard you say that it's 2.5 times over. Can you clarify that for me, please?
Sorry. Yes, I can. Okay, so the issue at hand is there's two things. One is that guest cottages are limited to a maximum of 700 square feet. So this guest cottage is twice that. Wow. Which, it's a large property too. Right. We're not putting this on a 60 by 120, to be fair. But the other issue then is there's a second limit to accessory structures, that they can't be more than 40% of the floor area of the principal. The principal structure is over 6,000 square feet. It's larger if you include the full garage. So this is 48%, including that outdoor living area on the bottom, the open air area. And so that's why we're just in abundance of caution, like putting both of those in, because the open air structures are accessory structures. So I think there you would have to consider that, there could be a house up here that's 1,432 square feet. There could be a pool cabana back here and a freestanding garage. That they just happen to be in the same structure. And so we have to decide if that's acceptable on this property or not, because it tips over the 40% limit. So it's two waivers, one for the guest cottage, that the living space in this structure is 1,432 square feet. And then the other is the entire structure is 48% of the principal building. And those are why there's two different considerations. So, and then, I lost my train of thought a little bit. Okay. So the only other thing I wanted to add is that while we see a lot of densification on the mainland where we've had recently people subdividing lots to take one house and build it into two, it is, I don't know for sure. I need to really analyze it more for Delray specifically, but I know on some of the other barrier islands in the county, you actually are seeing a reduction in households because of exactly this type of thing, kind of just building larger family compounds and reducing the density on the barrier island. Mm-hmm. If it was, and I know the concern about the non-paying guests, but quite honestly, if they stayed distinct, then it definitely is two potential households very easily. So is it better that it's one, or does it matter? Is it more we care about the physical result? And I mean, it's a lovely property. So I think that's the ultimate question in terms of just what is the need to unify them. You can have a pool in the front yard as long as it's not in the setback. So that's, I think, the ultimate question.
Okay, so I am too a proponent of property owner rights. However, do you see that allowing this, and I do see in some way that this is a special privilege as well. Do you see that being a problem in going forward with the ordinance that we're working on, that this would be some sort of conflict in allowing this 2.5 times oversized structure to be considered?
Well, to be clear, the way that our comprehensive plan says we are handling accessory dwelling units is neighborhood by neighborhood. And the only neighborhood right now that is being analyzed is the Northwest-Southwest neighborhood in partnership with the CRA. So the barrier island is not currently being studied for that. I think probably Mr. Costello could speak more to, the ultimate renting and potential use of the structure.
Actually, you fixed it for me when you said neighborhood by neighborhood. I'm
yes,
good.
Ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Markert?
Yeah. The concern I have here is that it looks to me like we're blurring the cottage and the accessory structure. It's standalone by itself. It's not a cottage. It doesn't get anywhere close to our definition. And so we're taking one floor and we're calling it an accessory. We're taking the other floor and calling it a cottage. I don't think our regulations anticipated something like that. It just doesn't smell normal to me. So it feels like, we're taking the same structure, we're splitting it in two in order to get closer to compliance. And I'm not comfortable with that.
May I clarify, please? You want to get it, Chair?
Yes, good. Do you want to clarify something?
Yes, so within an accessory structure that's 40% of the principal structure, you can have a guest cottage. And the rest of that building could be your playroom, game room, garage, whatever you want it to be. But it's limited to 40%. To what Anthea spoke about on the accessory, it's 48% because we're counting that unenclosed outdoor area. That's part of the calculation, which in other cases where the way the definition of floor area is calculated, you may not include that, but we're dealing with, because it's an accessory structure. If that wasn't included in the calculation, it's not enclosed, it's like a patio area, it'd be 38%. So that's why initially the application didn't include that, and the staff reviewed it. I said, okay, well, we'll apply. We had some, background on how do you calculate, and so that's why I came in later with the other waiver, because it's unenclosed space. It's just like an open patio area. So within an accessory structure, you can have a guest cottage. It could be limited to 700 square feet, but the balance of that structure could be whatever other uses are associated with the principal structure. So it's because it's within, which even makes it look, hey, we're only dealing with one structure. It could have been where 40% of that, let's say, what was it, about a little less than 3,000 square feet, as she stated, could be on, and then you could build another structure, another 700 square foot accessory structure, or another one, as long as you met the open space requirement, building coverage requirement. And in the analysis that we provided, we don't exceed the lot coverage requirement. We don't exceed the open space requirement. And it's the utilization of this existing structure as is. The owner acquired both, the previous owner owned both, with the intent they tore down the existing single-family home, which went almost all the way up to Waterway Lane, to build this. And I think they found out after the fact, it's like, oh, we can't do this. And so with my client, look, they bought both. They relocated here. They built a new house. They combined through the property appraiser. It is a homestead exempted property. If they were to be separated, then one would be taxed as a market rate and the other would be homesteaded. And even with them combined, it's over $100,000 in taxes a year. So for my client, it's like, this is the compound, this is the dream that she had, and so being able to utilize the first floor for the art studio and the other for the guest cottage.
I don't need a representation. Commissioner
One other
did you have a
question,
question?
Mr. Costello?
We're looking for brief answers.
Just one other question, because it seems like the holdup is that they're getting the homestead on the entire property, and for us, the holdup is we're be granting somebody a special privilege. Why can't they create an LLC, leave it divided, tell the county keep it that way, create an LLC or a trust, and have the second part homesteaded under a business LLC? They can't.
You have to live.
It's got to be a principal.
Oh, no,
residence.
you can do that. One individual in the family can be on the LLC, and another individual in the family can be on the house. I'm just saying there's ways to resolve this problem without us having to compromise our rules. Could we give Mr. Costello a period of time to look into how he could, because if this whole issue is about the fact that the entirety is homesteaded, if we gave, if that is truly the issue, could we give you a period of time to look into how to homestead the whole property? And if you can figure it out, fabulous. And if you can't, we would continue on the discussion. Yeah. And not even reconsider because we haven't answered, right?
In the meantime,
no.
It's just really we can't restructure the deal.
We didn't we haven't considered
he can
yet.
think about it himself. we can't argue, we can't give them the
We've
ideas.
given so many people leeway. Is it because?
May I add a quick comment, Mayor, before you go to yours? I just have a quick thing I want to add. Since I know you want to wrap it up. And
I'm
with
just
your
trying
comments.
to get moves along.
Yeah. Just one other element I kind of thought of when Anthea brought up the point about neighborhood by neighborhood as far as how we address these. And we've spoken with the BPOA at length about the barrier island and having design criteria to try and limit and mitigate, de-incentivize sort of the zero lot line structures, these giant box structures that get built. So maybe, this sort of development is kind of what we want to encourage there. This preserves a lot more space. It ends up being lower density. And in a way, I maybe want to consider that as far as the wider, longer vision in terms of how we want to, incentivize that these areas are developed. I mean, to me, this does make more sense if we're looking at that particular vision. Because if we force them to split this into two lots, that could then, what folks these days try to do is maximize square footage on each lot, and you end up with these structures that take up entire lots. So maybe we do want to look at incentivizing this type of thing going forward. Just a thought.
Thank you. My thoughts. This is my old neighborhood, as you know. And there's a number of properties in this neighborhood which are very big properties, which have a lot of different stuff on them. I know exactly what they're trying to do here. In fact, around the corner, there's another house, which the guest house is 990 square feet, and they're afraid to touch it because if they do anything to it, they can't keep it. And just, I know the rule. I think what they've done here is good. I agree it's a special privilege, but it's a special case. I mean, the house is already up. The people are buying it to do a little family compound. It's not like this. I'd like to put there. We are going to have some restrictions. I mean, we're going to have a unity of title, but are there other restrictions we could do? I mean, they can't rent it out, right? They're not going to be allowed to rent it. They're not going to be allowed to do this. Is that what we're talking about, right?
Correct. The definition of guest cottage is non-paying guests.
Right. So the family and friends
so
staying
no
there.
Airbnb. So
how would you enforce
family
that?
and friends staying there, and
does that survive an ownership change?
So.
Yes, it will run with time.
That's a whole other workshop
No,
on
they can't
Airbnb.
regulate
But I do. It would. It's single family, so it's a family, and that structure needs to be members of their family, non-paying guests, or potentially staff. And I do think that that Mr. Long raised a good point, which is that BPOA is. They've got guidelines. We've gone through additional changes to limit the sizes of the structures. And it's the utility line that keeps them from connecting it, which connecting it makes it one big structure, and they don't have to worry about that 40% rule.
Right.
But having it as two separate structures keeps the building from being so massive. So that I think that is actually on the positive side rather than connecting it into a giant wing to get around that rule.
And that's the old Lang Street alley that was abandoned.
That's what I keep saying.
between those
Nobody
two
ever
houses.
stops me and says that the buildings are too small in Delray. So this does help kind of break it up visually. And like I said, they're lovely buildings. But
I know this property well. That's the old Lang Street alley that was
that
abandoned.
is the old Lang Street.
Right,
that
because
goes
that's
between
Lang
it.
Street to the left.
But there's
so-
other stuff
and
in
but
there.
for that alley, but for that, those poles wouldn't be there. I mean, everything. So
Right.
I am sympathetic to the fact that what they had to do here. The little. I love how we call them cottages. I mean, these cottages are bigger than my house, but they are cottages. I think they've done a great job. I went by there a couple times. It's a great improvement on what was there before, and the house that they built is very different than the house that was there before. They put a lot of effort into it. I think this is it really is a special circumstance. I mean, if the house wasn't already there, I would feel differently. I do think that Commissioner Long and Commissioner Casal raised a very, very good point regarding setting a precedent. So I do want to see, I think we need to establish some rules on it, and we can start today. I mean, we may not be able to do for this one, but I think we do need to promulgate some kind of rules so that we can address we just don't want people buying their neighbor's house and creating these kinds of situations. So, because typically they would be tearing down the house to do something else, and I don't want them to do that. This house was very tastefully done, very beachy done, and it looks great. So,
Well, I believe you also mentioned the position of the building it's not at the front like a second normal house in a row. There's other.
No, it really is.
So-
It's
so
really
this-
practically
right,
attached to
so
the house. It's practically
It's
attached.
quasi. So you're certainly whatever the characteristics are that make this appropriate to you, then that's part of why you consider that.
So
Distance between the structures compared to the neighbor.
correct. I mean, the distance. I mean, there's a lot of different features here. That, but for the fact that there was the poles there and the XL, they would probably have attached it.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
We have no way of enforcing if this is a rental, so I want to take that off the table because we did have that person who came in front of us long ago, though, in the Marina District who was saying, I'm making an apartment for my grandma or some such, and then, of course, was renting it out and we could do nothing. So let's take that off the table for 1 second. That's not possible. Number two, I believe, Anthea, you said, at any given moment, after this is approved, additional structures can be added to this, a cabana house, the pool, and the pool would be lovely. But could they put additional structures that could also be like, I want to make sure I'm clear when you said multiple structures. They could put another smaller 700 square foot structure to utilize 700 square foot on there?
Not without another waiver.
Hang on.
Well, the accessory.
She doesn't need they wouldn't need a waiver.
The
I don't
accessory
think.
structure limitation is not cumulative right now.
Right,
So as long
so
as they
you could keep
but
going
there's
and going.
other rules in the zoning, like the setbacks, minimum lot coverage, minimum amount of open space, 25% non-vehicular open space, which things like that provide some level of mass and scale.
Right.
So it depends on the accessory structure.
My point is
tennis
this could
courts are
change.
included,
All of
yeah.
us saying,
Sure.
well, this is a great use of the property because there's so much space is not a guarantee. But I want to say to you, Mayor, respectfully, we sit up here a lot and the idea is we know it's granting a special privilege and we say, well, we'll grant it this one time and then how do we stop it from happening again? We can't do that. We can't be granting to some people and then saying, no, in the future, we're not granting. We're going to grant this tonight, change the rules. And it's no disrespect to the applicant, but we are the gatekeepers of the land development regulations here. And this is granting a special privilege. And I'm not comfortable when we say, we'll grant it tonight because we like this project and it's tasteful and whatnot, but in the future, we're going to figure out a way to not grant it for other people.
Understood.
It's not a good precedent to set, and
Coming
we've done
back
it
to me now.
twice.
Coming back. So that I did ask you the question, what kind of restrictions can we put on in the approval to address the issues that have been raised by some of the commissioners? Because
Okay.
we don't want this property now cluttered with other structures.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying, and I do think this speaks to Commissioner Margaret's comment. So first of all, I don't think that having the guest cottage above a garage is an issue because you could have a 40%, accessory structure, and it's comprised of a garage with a 700 square foot guest cottage. That's reasonable, right? So I think if the condition is that because we're giving a waiver to the 48%, which the 40% maximum, you could condition it that no additional accessory structure buildings, because I think if they wanted to put in a tennis court or a pool, that's probably not as visually impactful as peppering it with
I would
sheds.
expect them to
I
put
don't
in a
know.
pool.
Right?
Tennis
Right.
court might be tough, but a pool.
So I mean, you could limit it, right? To the waiver could be limited to that they can't exceed the limits of the waiver by putting more buildings.
Okay.
Let me see how the code calls them.
Was that something the applicant, well, I'll get to asking you questions. Because that would address my
Buildings.
concern about whether or not they can clutter the thing. But, because as I said, I don't think they're going to. Everything that they seem to be doing is trying to build a nice little family compound and not have it cluttered with structures, so.
So the code defines it as accessory building structure or use. So you certainly could impose that there are no additional accessory buildings can be placed on the property as a condition in addition to the unity of title. That would allow for the pool, that would allow for tennis courts, that would allow for other 8 things, but not a proliferation of storage sheds or a place to park your RV or things like that.
Okay. or a pool house for them. I mean, a pool house, you know, that would have to
They
use
have
the.
a lovely outdoor living area.
Huh?
They have a lovely 600 square foot outdoor living
Right,
area.
okay,
So-
right, okay.
We would agree.
They would agree to that, okay.
We would agree to that condition.
All right. With those kinds of provisos, I'm apt to support it, because I mean, I like the concept that it's a lot of open space. It's a lot of open space, and I really do know this neighborhood. I know this house, and that's Sandpiper. I mean, I know it all. So it looks a lot more imposing in this picture than it is when you drive by it. All right. So visually, it doesn't look as, you know, as complicated as it is when you're looking at this. So I'm apt to support it, with the restrictions that we've just talked about, and obviously if they want to change things going down the road, they'll have to come back and do that. But but I do think that we also need to start thinking about what the policy should be, you know, on a citywide basis. I know you're talking about looking at the northwest, southwest neighborhoods, but this may not be the only case on the Barrier Island.
Mayor, we have a policy though. That's why they're here, because they want to go outside of our policy.
No, I'm talking about something in addition, but whatever. So, so do I have a consensus? What do we
Can
have?
I just ask
Yeah,
one more?
please, go ahead.
I just going to go back to my question, Anthea. So, you know, all fine and well with what we're talking about with the rules and the restrictions going forward, but will this survive ownership changes? So if they end up selling the property in 10 years, is the second structure going to become an Airbnb? And we have no recourse.
It's not allowed to be an Airbnb regardless. Well, if it stays one property, it is not allowed to be an Airbnb.
Let me confirm this. It runs with the land, right?
It would run with the land.
So the
Yes.
subsequent buyers would be subject to the same restrictions that we would be imposing now.
And Mayor, the unity of title would require the city's approval if they wanted to dissolve it.
Yes.
So we put that language in there that if they sought to dissolve it, meaning they want to separate the properties again, they would have to have the permission of, I think it's the chief building official. And we usually put that language in there.
Yeah, okay. Can I get a motion?
I move resolution number 233-24. And do I need to add in any of those conditions that we
You just say
referenced?
as amended on the record.
As
There's
amended.
just two conditions, right?
Yeah, the unity of title and the restrictions that we said that they're not going to be
Accessory
able to
building
exceed
structure.
the,
Well, no additional accessory buildings on the property.
yeah, right, correct. Okay.
As amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Markert,
No.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cassell,
No, I'm sorry, to the applicants.
Commissioner Burns.
Yes.
Mayor Carney.
Yes,
Motion passes.
okay,
Thank you all very much, and happy holidays.
great.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We now have 7B, also a quasi judicial hearing. Would you like to enter the, I'm presuming everybody here to speak on 7B has already been sworn in, yes?
Yes.
Any ex parte conversations with the applicant? Any? None?
No, but there were emails on our server.
Yes, we emails, other than the emails on the server, yeah. Okay. Would you please enter the project into the record?
Sure. Anthea Geniotis, Development Services Director, and I'd like to enter file 2024-166 into the record.
Great. Would you please read the resolution?
Resolution number 245-24, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, granting a waiver request to Section 465C of the Land Development Regulations to allow a 10-foot high wall to be located within the front and side street setback for the property located at 319 Andrews Avenue, is more particularly described herein, providing an effective date and further purposes.
Thank you very much. To the applicant.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Gary Leopoulos. Address is 1045 East Atlantic Avenue. I am with GE Architecture. Also here tonight are my clients, Jordan and Megan Dorfman, and we also have our builder, Graham Hutchinson of Lost Craft. So this is a kind of a unique situation that's been happening over on the Barrier Island. I've actually presented before this commission before with this situation that we're dealing with. I think from the surface, when you start talking about a 10-foot high wall, it's kind of extreme. but I think it goes back to site-specific, and it goes back to the criteria that people are having to deal with. One of the things that I can appreciate with staff's report is that you're talking about looking at this situation. How do you handle the situation where you've got buildings getting up higher for finished floors, and we've got rising tides and things like that that everybody's dealing with. Right there is, we're facing Lang Street. You are seeing portions of the wall that we're talking about, and you're seeing that we have decorative railings within them. This is going down now to the corner of Lang Street and Andrews. Now we're turning the corner again. You're seeing the same thing. One of the things is, obviously, this house was in the beach overlay. It has been approved by all the design guidelines and is quite in character of what this neighborhood is supposed to be. At least we feel that, and so didn't they do it when we did the review. For location, again, I think this is also important. When you start talking about waivers for these wall heights, you look at where these sites are located. When you're on a corner, there's a couple things that you're dealing with. You're dealing with a front setback, you're dealing with a side street setback. It tends to start pushing the house inward. The other thing is, when you're in an infill project, typically you're going to have maybe the pool and stuff in the backyard. Well, there the walls can be 8 feet high. So it does change the dynamics, and one of the things that's unique about this one is, again, it's on the corner. So you got the corner of Lang Street, you got Andrews Avenue, just north of it you got Waterway Lane. All right, so this is what we're looking at. Requesting for a wall height waiver from the required maximum wall height of 6 feet within the front and the side setbacks to 10, as per LDR section 4.6.5C. One of the other things that's interesting is in our guidelines or in our LDRs, there's a distinction between retaining wall and privacy wall with structure. So retaining wall is holding things back, right? It's holding earth, it's holding water, it's whatever it is, it's holding. Privacy walls are in your LDRs and they have a height. Well, now we're dealing with a combination of retaining wall and privacy wall. So there is a difference there, and it is a big distinct difference. I'm going to talk about some of these terms right here, and the reason why I want to bring them up is because these are a lot of things that are actually changing everything that we're looking at. FEMA, so the Federal Emergency Management Agency, you heard Jeff Costello just mention, this week Friday, they are changing the finished floor height of what you can build. Now underneath that it says Florida Building Code 2023. The Florida Building Code says whatever FEMA says is your minimum height, so let's just say elevation 6 feet above the sea level, the building code says you got to go to 7. So I was going to be 12 inches more, okay? Now, one of the things that also happened is you got NAVD. This is kind of important. North American Vertical Datum. What happened was this. In 2018, all the homes that we did in this area, we built them to 7 feet. The thing is, we built them to a different standard. It was NGVD. NGVD, all the homes were built, all of them met code. 2018, FEMA comes along and says, we're going to change it to NAVD. Guess what that did? It dropped all their heights down 1.5 feet. Every home that we did that met code no longer met code. So you have to start looking at these things and saying, this is a very unique area and how things have been changing. Let's see here, sorry. Okay, so here's our site. Again, I feel this is unique in the sense that we are on the corner. One of the things is that when I met with my clients, we talked about what was pending. The pending floor height for their property was 7 feet. We clearly got in for the building department. We clearly got all the permits. We could have gone to 7 feet. They chose to go to 8 feet to make it legal down the road. You're seeing now this is along the south elevation. We have to measure stuff. Now we basically go by undisturbed land, but you're also looking at the crown of road where you're talking about an average of 3.5 feet. That's above sea level. Along Andrews, you're looking at also 3.24 as far as the average there. All right, so now I've described how we're raising the finished floor of this height. One of the things that we did also is that we shifted the house back. When you go up Lang goes upward. The abutting neighbor towards the east is at a finished floor elevation of 12 plus. So what happens is when we shifted it back, these houses are actually looking down onto us. But when you look at how this actually faces the right-of-ways, you're seeing that the house is set way back. In some areas, we're set back over 50 feet. We got wraparound porches, once again, to relieve the elevation that you're seeing along the street. This next slide I'll go in kind of slow and the rest will be a little quicker, but it's basically just showing the things that we're dealing with. So here along the south side, which would be the right, we've got our front setback. That's 35 feet. You can clearly see this building is further back than that. Along the rear we have 12. With the beach overlay you have to go additional 5 feet for the second floor. There's the wall. We are breaking it up with railings. Now, you look at it, it is basically 13 feet when it starts talking about above sea. But of course you have to take into account the road. You start looking at 8 feet, which is our finished floor height. Now you're going to be looking at Florida Building Code. We had to be 12 inches different from that, so there's the line there. Now you're going to bring it down to what they could have built with FEMA, which was down at 6. And now you're talking about the adjacent grades. This is the road, which we're talking about 3.5. And then in some areas, it's going to be literally 9.6. In some areas, it'll actually be less. We will be creating a swale. One of the things that we have to determine when we are building along our public right-of-ways, we have to help improve the public sewer systems and rainwater. When we create swales that this property didn't have, we are actually helping increase the demand along the streets. There's the average, and you're starting to see how low this house or the road is. So this is looking at the south. One of the things that staff talks about is a lot of times you can look at mitigating these heights. Look at doing stairs and steps and bringing it on up. It's important to understand, I think this is why a charrette or something that staff should be doing with engineers, architects, builders, talk about how do we get around this. Because one of the things in our guidelines is that you can't have a set of stairs that exceed 3 feet in height within a setback. So I'd still be here coming to you guys and asking for relief on that. So these are things that we're dealing with, that we're trying to make a better situation with the homes that we're designing. So over in this area, due to the slopes, it's actually going to be 7.5. We are still saying 10 because 10 was the largest, so we wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. Okay, so I described that we've got a wall that's a privacy wall, and we also have what you call a retaining wall. So what happens is, you see the wall, which is on the left-hand side, you can see there's a tree next to it, and then there's earth. We are retaining the earth there. We also offset the walls back 2 feet to make sure we can have landscaping in front of it. So one of the unique things about this home is that it is a pool in the front yard. So when you have pools, most people, I think, would agree that when you have a pool, you're going out to the pool, you don't want steps going all the way down to the pool. Again, we chose to put the pool in the front. We are not asking for relief on the pool location. That's why the house is shifted so far back, and it gives relief along the street. When you start looking at what we have for walls, our walls are literally anywhere from 16 to 20 feet off of the front property lines. So they are set back. This is not like we're putting a property or a wall right on the street and you're going to see it that way. It is set back with a distance, and then the landscaping helps us. This is actually the south side going towards Lang Street. Again, you are seeing the pool. When you start seeing where the 35-foot setback is, you're looking at an additional 15 feet that goes to the building, and then you go another 15 feet of a covered porch area, which means the main structure is quite set back off of this street. Okay, so, you never want to talk about precedents, but I mean, I only want to talk about the ones that I've actually done. So this wall right here was at 9 feet. We came before the commission. We asked for relief. The reason why this one was a little unique in that the entire property runs along a street. So whether it's the front, whether it's the back, you're going to be dealing with grades. The trees and everything that you're seeing here were actually planted in 23. Right now it's heavily vegetated. Again, it served its purpose. You do not see the railing. This was a combination of a wall and a railing like we are proposing today. Here's another view of it. Now you're seeing, when the landscaping's going in, this is the elevation you would see from Andrews. We feel, again, this is going to be not something that's setting such a precedent, because when you look at all the things that come into play on this property and what the state and federal governments are doing to us, we're forced to do what we're presenting today. This is the south. Now we do have steps. We have tried mitigating stuff on these elevations to get us up to that elevation. Another 3D rendering of what you would be seeing. Again, railings breaking it up. Now you're going along, again, Andrews. That's probably the wrong slide, but here's what it's talking about. The elephant's not drowning, but the problem is let's talk about it. The elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that we got to deal with this, right? We got to deal with what we're talking about. I think what's amazing is my clients bought this property in 2012. They wanted to renovate. They renovated it. They came to me in 2022. They wanted to do another renovation. I called Steve Tobias. I said, Steve, what do we do? Their elevation is at 4.5 feet. He goes, listen, I'm going to just tell you right now, the way the criteria is with the state, they're auditing the city, and then they're going to audit your client, depending on how much they spend. So quick calculation on a simple note, when you look at your property values, you say, okay, this property is worth, let's say, $3.5 million. What's the structure worth? Because that's the one they base it on. Structure is worth $300,000. We can spend 20% of that value per year. So you're talking $60,000. So it wasn't much of a renovation. They did not want to do this. These people are like the kind of people you want in our city. They literally bought in the Marina District. They bought a historic house and they renovated that. Now they're doing their home and they're actually building it to the code. So it's one of these things where I put this here because I really do think this is where we want to get with Anthea and staff, and like I said, get the right engineers, the right people involved, and let's get some guidelines that we can all work with and help the people that are in this area that it seems like the codes are constantly changing on them. There's this type of thing that they do on the West Coast. So the West Coast, they got these things, and you see the garages on the ground floor. They have pool storage or beach storage, and then they got the stairs. Again, our code says I can't go above 3 feet with stairs and a setback. So something like this wouldn't work. Obviously, this is not attractive. I clearly did that intentionally. But the point was this. I felt that this is something that we need to see and say, well, that's not one of the options we want. Again, this is our corner that you're going to be seeing. We think it is quite charming. I think when you start looking at pursuant to the LDR section 2.4.11 B5, prior to granting a waiver, the granting body shall make the findings that the granting of this waiver A, shall not adversely affect the neighborhood area. We believe the character of this house, the design of this, will not affect it. Matter of fact, we know several walls have been granted the same privilege that we're asking for. We do not think this is setting a precedent. B, shall not significantly diminish the provision of the public safety or facilities. Okay, one of the things that we've done is it's not going to have anything to do with, we feel, the public facilities in the sense that we're creating the swales. We've maintained all the required criteria for water to remain on our property. As far as C, shall not create an unsafe situation. Okay, so we've got Andrews, we've got a 10-foot high wall, and we've got Lang Street. Lang Street's one way. Every corner clip for two-way roads, we got to do 25 feet. We're doing 25 feet for a one-way road. So we're actually exceeding that, and it's becoming more safe than it ever was. As far as D goes, does not result in the grant of a special privilege, and the same waiver would be granted under similar circumstances on other properties for other applicants and owners. We'd be able to look up resolution number 8021, resolution number 10823. These are all similar circumstances that we got approved from this commission or prior commissioners. I'd be happy to answer any questions should you have them. Thank you very much.
I have a quick question for you, Gary. Are you representing that that's a that depiction is a true and accurate 10-foot wall?
Yes.
And that's your scale. That's scaled to 10 feet.
That is
as a
exactly
visual?
off the computers. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. To staff.
Okay. So ultimately, this is, I think, an ongoing issue, and I want to be really clear about the distinction between what FEMA requires and what we're seeing, which is FEMA requires you raise the finished floor. FEMA does not require that you fill your lot so that you don't have to have too many steps to the pool. That said, in this case, the wall is set back. There's a lot of landscaping between it. I think that it's probably more important we look at this example like with a critical eye of in terms of how are we going to tackle this moving forward in general, but we'll deal with this the request first. So the disconnect that we're having, and you've seen a few of these, and you've seen some of them that have been a little bit more challenging because of the impact to the neighbors. We've had a couple. We actually changed the rules for notifying waivers because of the disconnect of a wall situation. So, what happens is that all fences and walls are measured from the undisturbed grade before you do anything. and that keeps it kind of balanced between adjacent properties in the street, right? So among those three conditions. What then happens is some of these properties, particularly on the barrier island, have a significant sort of delta to make up between what is the new FEMA standard. The building code adds another foot, and in an effort towards encouraging proper elevation, the city allows for freeboard of another foot on top of that, right? Because the world is changing. So, if FEMA requires 7 and somebody wants to build to 8, that's probably good planning for the future, right? So we don't even take that out of your overall height. So keep in mind, they have to elevate. We're encouraging people to meet the new requirements, not just for CRS and insurance ratings, but because FEMA doesn't lightly make these recommendations. The world is changing. They need to be up. So the disconnect happens that the only regulation that has anything to do with compatibility besides keeping your stormwater on your own property and building the swale to offset what's happening is the perimeter walls and the fences. This is where it all comes down to. And we can see it coming down the line over and over again. And at the planning stage, we're always trying to work with the applicant to figure out how to transition. But on the single families and the smaller lots, it's all happening at the building permit level. So just very quickly, Gary's graphics are much better, so we might want to switch to his. So again, the idea is sort of like, how does it look from the street? And in this case, I think one of the considerations is that these walls are set back, which visually allows for that transition. Couldn't think of the word. But I'm going to try to shift to this. This is the problem, right? That's not the finished floor. There's 4 feet of fill that has been brought in that's being held by a retaining wall. And I agree with Mr. Eliopoulos that the code does not make a very clear distinction between retaining walls that kind of turn into perimeter walls. There is work to be done here to figure out the best way to handle this in the future. So that's the project. It's under construction. Those are your criteria. Whether it's adversely affecting the neighborhood property. We have had issues of compatibility and concerns raised by the public before. In terms of the wall impacting public facilities, I don't agree that it is, but I think we need to look towards our building practices, the amount of structural fill we're bringing into our floodplain areas, and how to tackle that moving forward. I agree very much with Mr. Eliopoulos on that. And so is this a special privilege or is this not? Right now, there is not a limitation on that. You have to lift it. How do you do the wall and how do you design it in a way that you've achieved what needs to happen? You have the right to enclose a pool, whether or not you have the right to have a wall that high in your front yard. Those are the things you should look at for each individual condition, whether the design that's being brought forward manages to from a flood zone. We have started analyzing this between Development Services in partnership with Public Works Stormwater. They've started working on that, but a larger public outreach effort is going to be needed to finalize construction rules moving forward. I'm just using this waiver to make sure you're understanding that we understand this is a challenge for all of our property owners in our flood zones and not just this applicant. This is, I think as much as I can bring, and this may be more of a question and answer in a cross situation, but it's a question of whether the proposed design is going to be consistent with the neighborhood character or not. Are you achieving a reasonable amount of privacy, or are you asking for too much in the front wall? I mean, if you lift up the whole thing 4 feet and you only put a 4-foot wall, some of us have animals that can jump that very easily. There's securing things for children on both sides. So certainly having a secure perimeter is important for all of our property owners. And so that has to be taken into consideration. So that completes my presentation.
Great. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to the commission on this subject? If so, please come to the lectern, give your name and address. You shall each have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Gary Gerlach. I'm at 1126 Seaspray Avenue, which Tom knows. The only question I have, I understand everything that Graham has done with this house. He did a wonderful job on the house on Seaspray as well. Is this wall going to be like squared off, you know, from the Lang side to the Andrew side, so that you have a right angle there? Or is there going to be is it going to be round? Is it going to be chamfered, something like that? Because I don't like the thought of...
You have the architect behind you, you know, wanting to be the elephant in the room, so
No, you're
nodding
absolutely
your
right.
head.
So one of the things that I described was that we did a 25-foot corner clip
Excuse
on
me,
the
sir.
property.
Sir, were you sworn? Were you sworn in?
I stood up, but this is my first time coming.
When I asked everyone to stand up, did you
could
stand up and get sworn?
Could you swear me in?
Yes, would you please swear?
Sorry.
I apologize.
Yeah.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Okay. So
what happens is
Mayor, I'm
I know
sorry.
you're set back way
This is
far,
Plaza,
and
we're
so
going
can
to
we do
have
the answers after?
landscaping.
Yeah, do we have we're going to give you your answers afterwards. This is quasi judicial, so you should know those rules, Gary. So I think I called you up, so it's not really your fault.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, sir. Please continue.
But anyway, I just think that a right angle at that point is aesthetically non-pleasing, for one thing. If it could be chamfered off, I don't know if that interrupts what they've got or something like that. I think that's a more attractive feature.
Does this house abut your house in the back? No, you're at 1126. This isn't.
No, you rented from us.
Yes, I know we did.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We have no house in the back.
No, okay.
We just have one house now.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. No. Oh, they're going to do something with the house in back of us now.
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So
You done?
Anyway,
I'll get an answer for your question.
that's my concern. I'm not griping about it. I understand why because they have to be so high, they want to build a higher wall. I understand that. At first, I didn't realize they were going to have a grading. I was afraid next thing I'd see is concertina wire around it, stuff like that. But because it would look, if it was just a blank wall.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Any other members of the public? Mr. Iliopoulos, would you like to answer the question that was posed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. You can see down in the lower left-hand corner, the wall comes down, Andrews. We jog in, then we literally arc it. So you're going to actually have a curved wall that actually goes in towards the property versus outward. And then it comes along Lang, and then we curve it again, going inward to the property and then across. So we've actually provided a lot of relief in the wall.
Yeah, I was thrown off by those little
Thank you, sir.
blocks on
Thank you. Thank you. I know it's my fault. It was my fault. Any cross-examination or rebuttal?
I don't know which this is, but I would like to ask Mr. Iliopoulos a couple questions, if that's okay. So in terms of this street is Lang or the other?
No, that's Andrews.
Andrews, and and the setback between the sidewalk that the neighbors might be walking down in here, there will be a landscape buffer, correct?
The sidewalk, we always put on our plans, it has been deferred and paid for, it's not being put in. So
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
But between the property line and the wall, there
Is 2 feet.
Okay, and there will be landscaping,
Yes.
correct? Okay, so here's my question in terms of looking, I'm sorry, I have to go through all your things
I like
here.
dancing.
Okay, so which line shows where the grade on the other side of the wall actually is?
So see where it says 8 feet?
The finished floor elevation right
Right
here?
there. Actually, we would be dropping down to that next line right
one?
there, right below it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
So the ground is 1 foot below the required finished floor.
Yeah, so what
2
happens
steps.
is, we do step down and then it slopes to the wall so that we actually bring it down. And that's what we've done.
Okay.
Try and reduce it.
That's fine. Okay, so, and the property is largely constructed?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. so I can't ask you to move it around, right? So,
I
got it.
prefer not to.
Thank you. Just making sure we know where we are.
Are you,
I'm finished, thank you.
and you're finished?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. To the commission, Mr. Long.
I guess kind of harkening back to some of my earlier comments for the last project, looking at sort of the big picture here, this is the type of development I think we want to consider. This is a very nebulous issue that we've been dealing with for a while, and we're not going to figure it out tonight, and I don't want to conflate what we're allowing here with the ordinance or whatever that we're going to end up passing, although I think we could draw a lot of great sort of insight from this project. These are waivers. We're not codifying what we're doing here, but I don't really know how the applicant could do a better job with the variables that they've been given, that they've been saddled with here. It's a tricky spot, and I think they've done a really nice job buffering this with all the setbacks. So overall, I'm in favor of this, and I may chime back in later in the conversation, but overall, I'm leaning towards being in favor of this. Thank you.
Mr. Marker.
Yeah, no pun intended. The landscape is changing. There's no doubt. You highlighted that with the FEMA changes and all the other stuff that we're up against. But I think the design looks really good. I think it's done very tastefully, and I tend to be in support of this.
Great. Commissioner Casal.
Thank you. How many times did you say we've granted this already?
Do you want to know how many times I've done it?
Yeah, no, I was just trying to use that as an example going back to 7A for the mayor. I wasn't actually, I'm just, no offense. What will the height of the ground, what will the level of the ground to the fence be where the pool area is? Because I know there's requirements. I'm trying to get what's the ground level from the pool area?
So that's going to be approximately 4.5 to 5 feet. It
Which
has
is
to be 4
required.
feet.
So you're
Oh, it is
going right
4.
to the point where it's required, right? You know, we are seeing this so much, and it's concerning. I mean, we're seeing it in some instances where it's seemed very aggressive. And in this instance, I can say I appreciate the decorative railing because I think that changes the look of the fence. And so I am going to support this, but we were talking today, we need to figure out a way to really address this because we're seeing it over and over and over again. And I don't know what we're going to be looking at in the near future. And, we talked about penalties for not following our regulations. I'm not implying here that there were, there were any issues, but we've been seeing this more. You haven't been the only one coming in here, and it's been, concerning because there are neighbors. But I do support this project, and it is, while we cannot go on the looks, I will say that you've taken a situation that could otherwise not look very attractive and made it as attractive as it can be. And so I will be in favor.
Commissioner Burns.
I don't really have any questions. I think I've been a part of approving at least one or maybe two of these already, and each one is different. And, I can appreciate the homeowner trying to meet these new standards. So I would be in support of it.
Well, it is kind of self-inflicted, though, because if you were doing your house and not all the way to grade, it's an unusual thing to do what you did. I am acknowledging we don't have a rule on that, which we need to develop sooner rather than later, because it is going to affect a drainage issue with the surrounding properties. I think you've done this very well. I'm glad you're going to be putting the stuff at a right angle on the fences because that was key. I mean, I'm still, as I mentioned before, this was my old neighborhood. I'm still, the concept of driving by and looking at a 10-foot wall is not, I don't want to look like Palm Beach in that regard. You drive down there and they all have these massive walls, and because of part of what we do is we have these architectural rules because we want people to build nice, pretty houses that people can look at. So, as they drive by. But I understand this issue. I've had a couple of letters saying that they actually not adjacent property owners, but they didn't like it. But I'm understanding that the property owners on Sandpiper actually had no issue with this, and they're actually behind the property. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to until such time as we get a rule, but I don't know if we can put in an in-progress kind of a thing, because we need to address this. We need
Right.
to address this concept if we're going to allow the people to have the finished floor at one level, and it's not going to get any better with FEMA. You know, so to have fill on the entire property, I mean, it's actually more expensive for them, but they've done it well. But whether or not you had stairwell to the pool is a separate issue. But that needs to be addressed, because it's going to happen in this entire barrier island. It's going to, it's going to affect them all.
I was going to ask the same question that the mayor asked, which is, what can we do in the meantime? Because it's going to take us a bit to get this together. Is there anything we can do?
I mean, so my understanding before I started working here full time, and I'm looking at Mr. Leopoulos as well because of his history leading the city. My understanding is that there was a reaction that we didn't want to have houses on stilts here. That wasn't the Del Rey way, in terms visually of what we wanted to see.
Houses on stilts.
So I think that while, staff, we have strong opinions on what structural fill does to environmentally to the city in the long period, we need to have a larger public discussion about how we are going to navigate these new elevations, how much fill is too much fill, or is it okay? And we all just understand we're going to have to live with incompatibilities between properties for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I understand they're doing the retaining wall to deal with some of that fill, because the fill could, the potential for runoff is there.
I mean, there's obviously many things that, this board wants staff to focus on and spend time, but I honestly think that this one really does need to be higher on the priority, because we need to, it does it. There's reasons, the swale and the other things, I did want to say one thing, is that this property is holding its own drainage. They wouldn't have gotten a building permit if they weren't able to meet the drainage calculations, and that's why you see the green and the swale and some of those other things. But I think we do need to collectively have a discussion about how to manage these elevations and visually what we're willing to accept and what we're not. Stairs, front setbacks, terracing, things like that, and where they can happen, and make adjustments to the LDRs. We can't just put restrictions. We might need to be putting, other allowances in as well.
But you are going to be having landscaping in front of the wall.
Right.
Yes.
And you're going to keep it trimmed so it doesn't grow to be 12 feet high?
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to cut it.
Okay.
And so I don't know that a zoning in progress at this point is appropriate, because I wouldn't know what to tell anyone to do, but we need to certainly start.
So maybe we direct for them to put this on the top of the
Let's do this
priority.
first. I need a motion.
I'll get a motion. Motion to approve resolution number 245-24.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Deputy Vice Mayor Long,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cassell,
Yes.
Commissioner Burns,
Yes.
Mayor Carney,
Yes?
Commissioner Markert.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, folks.
Now, as
Happy holidays.
for the suggestion made by myself and other, I do want, this is something that I think that if there's a consensus up here, the
Yes.
staff needs to be working on this. This is going to be a continuing problem, where
Right.
you're looking at a wall that's 10 feet from your yard, but it's 6 feet when you look at it this way, and we need to address that. And we certainly need to address if they're going to be having retaining walls and doing fill on the entire properties, because environmentally, it could be a real, in a bad storm and flood, really not a very good thing.
Do you want us to research the zoning in progress, if there's something we can do? or-
Yes.
I mean, do we want it, we could, yeah, why don't you look at that and come back to us, I guess, in January, see whether or not it makes sense to do a zoning in progress type of a thing until such time. By then, you can figure out
How much time?
whether
we
you're
need?
going to be able to do it or not, and then in which case we'll address it then. Is everybody agreed?
Sounds good.
Everybody agreed? Good, okay, we're good on that. All right, next item. Appointments to the Code Enforcement Board, 7C. We have 4 regular members and 2 alternate members.
Mayor, I'm sorry, before you start this, do you want to have some type of a discussion first about the regular appointments, so we don't have that? Are the first 4 appointments going to be for the 4 regular members, and the next 2 are going to be for the alternates? Just
I
so
think
that we're
that's
clear.
fair.
Yeah, I mean, let's do the 4 regular and then
And
the
then
2
the 2
alternates.
Okay, thank you.
We'll do the 4. So the first one is Vice Mayor Casal. You have the first choice.
I will select Mr. Jimmy Cann.
Who?
That was
Oh, sorry.
Jimmy Ken.
Oh, Jimmy
Jimmy
Camp.
Camp.
He's on there now, right?
Yep.
Okay. A motion to approve?
Yes.
Yeah, no, well, I need someone to make a motion to.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, the second is done by Commissioner
Burns.
Burns. Thank you. One of
Okay,
us can read.
so she took Mr. Canton. That was my first choice. Second choice, Christina Godbow.
Godbow?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Third one is me, and I'm going to appoint Rick Burgess. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can I say something really that's going to probably not make you happy? I think that, do we have a history of code violations with that gentleman?
I think that's kind of out of order. We've motioned it and approved, so if you want to bring it up in comments, that'd be
I'm just
fine.
wondering if we want, I believe that when we were having issues before.
Done and done.
Okay.
You-
I
Anyway,
think they check for code liens, Mayor.
huh?
All right,
I
if
think-
there
I
aren't
think
any, I'm
there-
fine with it. I
think
just
part
thought
of the
there were.
process is to check for code liens.
Yeah, he has no, that I
Okay,
checked.
then I'm fine. I
No,
just
Commissioner
thought he did.
Markert.
I nominate Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Schultz, a sec. Do I have,
Joseph Schultz, motion
do I
to
have a
approve?
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Now we are choosing the two alternates. We are going back to Deputy Vice Mayor Long for the,
I nominate Adam Nelson.
okay.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And finally, Vice Mayor, oh, you have another, you have
Correct.
the other
I get,
alternate.
Mr. Vetter, Jim Vetter.
Jim Vetter, perfect.
Motion to
Good guy.
approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all approved, all five. Okay, now we approve number 7D, approval of resolutions 257-24. Would you like to please read the resolution? And this is Mr. Orris will be making this presentation.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, approving a professional services agreement with Calvin Giordano and Associates, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Safebuild LLC, to undertake an analysis of the city's code enforcement division, authorizing the city manager to execute the agreement, any amendments and/or renewals thereto, and take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution, providing an effective date and for the purposes.
Great. Mr. Orris.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this is an item you have seen before, and we had some discussion on. At the Commission's request, we are bringing this back. This is to engage Calvin Giordano and Associates to undertake a review of our code enforcement and their policies and procedures and such. The reason this is before you, even though it's a low-level, low-dollar contract amount, is because Calvin Giordano has had some business with the city, has an open contract that we have not used for a number of years, as well as their parent company. They are a wholly owned subsidiary of Safebuild. Safebuild has another company that the city does business with, MT Causley, which provides building inspections, and we have spent funds with them and do have, I think, one open contract with them at the moment. Other than that, the intent of this is to bring in their expert on code enforcement, Mr. Bernard Pita, who's their director of compliance, would be undertaking this study on behalf of the firm. He has a number of years of experience in law enforcement as well as in code and building and zoning enforcement. The intent is to bring in that specialist to come in and take a look at what our code enforcement division is doing, how they're doing it, make sure all's on the up and up, and as well as we have the most efficient and effective policies and procedures of how we're undertaking this.
Okay. To the commission.
I'll start if you like.
Okay.
When you say all is on the up and up, what are you saying?
I'm saying that our policies and procedures are efficient and effective.
Okay, what happened with the HR investigation that was going to occur after the meeting? That was weeks ago. Mr. Webb, I believe, was going to perform an HR investigation.
Mr. Paul Weber is involved in that.
I'm sorry, Weber.
Yes,
Pardon
ma'am.
me.
Paul Weber, who is the Labor Relations Administrator, he has been assigned to continue the work in that regard. I have not yet been provided a report as of yet. However, I anticipate hearing back from staff from the Department of Human Resources in this regard so that we can go from there.
I'm just so remarkably bewildered up here. We've had this discussion so many times. You were investigating the department on the Wednesday morning after we met. You were going to insist that Mr. Weber got in there and got this done quickly. And then you're here and you say, I haven't even spoken to him.
I did not say I've spoken with him.
You say you have no information.
Ma'am, the process continues. They are concluding their process. However, in light of the situations we've spoken about in previous week, I must reiterate that it is professionally appropriate to bring on an outside entity to help us get us to where we need to be with respect to code enforcement policies, corrective actions, and process improvement considerations. And the Department of Human Resources, what I do know from the review process that was initiated 4 weeks ago, tomorrow, they are not in position to offer some specifics in that regard. However, I'm looking forward to them concluding their review process, and quite frankly, if the commission is satisfied with the recommendation, which has been initiated a number of weeks ago, I will connect the dots in that regard with respect to human resources, the work that they've done thus far, as well as any considerations that may be born from the exercise involving Calvin Giordano. So our recommendations have been consistent in that regard. I pivoted 4 weeks ago because, of course, the 2-2 outcome represented no opportunity for direction, and therefore I did make a commitment to get down to business with respect to the human resources.
And it's not a priority, which is shocking to me because we're 10 months later, 10 months after somebody that worked for the city of Delray was accused.
Excuse
if
me,
I
but-
may finish,
No, you
please.
may not. What
You
we have
can't
with the
take
agenda.
the floor away from me for no reason. I am allowed to speak, Mayor. I don't think Robert's rules permit you to just pull the floor away from me. When I'm speaking, we are sitting here,
If
the
you're-
city
if
manager.
you would like to speak on
I
the
am
agenda-
going to
if
speak
you'd
on
like
the,
to speak on
this
the
is
agenda
the agenda
item,
item.
speak on the agenda item.
October 15th, I said I wanted an outside
Good.
person to come in. October 15th, and Mayor, you said, let's let Mr. Moore handle it. That's the at exactly 3 hours and 1 minute into the meeting. That was when we first learned of this. 10 months, and you cannot tell us, do we have a problem in this department? This mismanagement is unbelievable. I cannot understand how you would come to this meeting without saying something to us about what's going on.
Well, that is a violation of Robert rules.
Why?
Because you can't, because it's called decorum, and it's a thing of our rules.
I'm
You
saying
can't
I don't
accuse-
understand.
I'm sorry.
I don't
Please
understand.
read the local rules as it relates to.
Okay, I will read the local rules, but you cannot sit up here and tell me that 10 months later, we have no
We're not-
idea what's going on in this department.
I'm not saying
The
saying
head
anything. I'm done.
employees
I'm just,
who-
I'm commenting to the fact that you're now yelling
Our
and screaming
city
about
manager informed us.
mismanagement and things such as
It
that.
is mismanagement. Our city manager informed us that Mr. Orris is running that department. Mr. Orris isn't running that department.
We have
You
in front
still
of
have
us-
the
we have in
same
front of us-
staff in there.
we have in
Who
front of
is
us
going
a
to
mo-
oversee the review? And when are we going to have an actual investigation?
Mr. Mayor, the Office of the City Manager will oversee the review. As I clarified last week, Assistant City Manager Jeff Orris is the lead support contact, working with all involved as we facilitate the transition, number one. Number two, the recommendations have been in fact consistent with one another. And number three, I am looking forward to Human Resources wrapping up what they can in terms of their findings and outcomes, and that's a report coming back to the Office of the City Manager. My commitment, as having been initiated back in November when we first offered this recommendation, was to offer an update to the commission in January. And given the direction offered last week, December 10th, 2024, to reconsider the Calvin Giordano opportunity, because again, there is merit for an outside review process to be initiated outside of some internal entity like the Department of Human Resources to enable us to come back in that regard. It does remain a priority. Those recommendations and considerations do not and have not changed, ladies and gentlemen.
Why
they have
is
not.
Calvin Giordano
Okay,
$30,000 less
can
than
we
the
have-
other?
can we have somebody
Wait,
else?
may I finish my questions?
you're out.
I can't ask
You're-
why Calvin Giordano is $30,000 less than the other company?
There was a, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to respond to that.
That's a reasonable question. I'll stop asking questions. Please don't answer it. That doesn't seem appropriate. It's a reasonable question.
The question, Mr. Long, I'll get back to you. I'll just let everybody
don't
else have a
have to,
chance
that's
first. Mr. Long.
I mean, first of all, I got to say, I think these constant referendums of the city manager every time we talk about this are very tiresome. It's not productive. You know, all these things that you bring up every time, Commissioner Casal, you could have in private discussion with the city manager instead of excoriating his entire department every time we have one of these discussions. It's not productive. We're all concerned about this issue. We all share your concern. This is not a productive pathway to do it, in my opinion. That being said, I would have voted, had I been at that meeting that I missed, I would have voted that we moved ahead with Calvin Giordano and Associates. I think it's the correct move at this time, and that's all I'm going to say about it for now. I don't think this needs to be an extended argument. I don't think we need to relitigate every single thing that's been talked about up until now. I think we just need to move forward with this.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes, I'm looking forward to moving forward with it. I think that we need to get someone who can come in and establish some consistent and fair policies, some equitable procedures, and some corrective action for moving forward. So I'm for moving forward on this.
Mr. Marker?
I was against this the last time, but this is a really big issue for the city right now, and I think we can use some outside help. So I'll change my vote from no to yes.
We're voting again. You don't have to. I know. Okay, whatever. It is a fair question. My term. It is a fair question about the discrepancy in the offer, in pricing of why is Calvin Giordano. I mean, what is the scope of services so dramatically different between the two, or is just one more expensive than the other? Because some of the comments, I'll be honest, some of the comments I got when we talked about human resources doing it is that, 4 weeks ago you were saying human resources was incompetent, well, the commission, but for whatever it was. And so you're turning it over to them. Why did you go to a third set of eyes? Fine, we're going to a third set of eyes. I looked at there were 7 companies that applied. I saw some different ones, but is there a difference in the scope of services that makes one $30,000 cheaper?
So they were all basically described a certain scope of work that we wanted. I think one of the reasons why the other proposal we have is so high, and I can't say this with certainty, but I feel fairly confident saying this, they're based out of Atlanta. Having been a consultant, one of the biggest expenses you have is travel and time. So if somebody's coming here from out of state, they're going to be spending a day just traveling. A day is $1,000 right there just for the time, let alone the service you undertake. So I would expect that to be the largest part of that discrepancy.
But the scope of services were the same?
They were described the same activities that we needed.
Okay, is that satisfactory?
There was no indication in there about anything about travel. That's a speculation on your part.
I would tell you that's a speculation,
Right.
but again, we know this company is
And
based in
Citron
Atlanta.
Cooperman reached out and wanted to do it, but something didn't happen with them. No conversation after.
They were at the meeting when we were talking about some of these. They indicated that may be something they were in. The gentleman who was before you, Stephen, I forgot.
Stephen Emery.
Thank you. He said it was something he thought his firm might be interested in.
Right.
I gave him my card and said, we're more than happy to talk to you. If anybody in your firm has any additional questions, please reach out. They did not reach out.
Right. So only 2 of the firms were actually engaged in discussion about the.
That's correct.
Yes. And this one
but,
is
I mean, and
20,000 less.
they're both qualified. I mean, if they were podunk companies, then I would think there's, but they're both. I mean, as I said, they're both top quality companies, and I can argue pricing or distance and everything, but I'm happy with the local one, and it helps to know the city a bit. So that's kind of, as I said, I've got so many people said to me, I don't understand why you don't have a third set of eyes. Why do you want an internal investigation? Isn't that also possibilities for this, that, or the other thing? And I said, I don't always think because something's internal that it's going to necessarily be with conflicts. I think, the person from HR doing it now is a former police officer with complete integrity. So I would not have expected
Right.
anything other than
It's
a
totally
perfect job done by him. That said, the perception of having an outside firm come in is probably a good idea. And which is why I voted for it the first time. So I need a motion.
Motion to approve resolution number 257-24.
Second.
Could I ask one question? So we are having an investigation, and you want this firm to come in and look at our policies and procedures. Do you not think that should be done when the department is cleaned
There's a
out?
motion on the floor. I don't know that this is appropriate.
Yeah, we also
I was
have to be
asking
first.
the mayor.
I'm saying let's engage the company first. We can worry about the timing. So let's engage the. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have a question that I can't vote until I have it answered, though, if you don't mind.
Then that we can.
I'm totally amenable to engaging them, but I feel that the investigation part should happen first, because there are times where we push aside the investigation or would write to the OIG and say we are taking care of this ourselves. I agree with you. I would like multiple sets of eyes on this. But we also have the unfortunate situation where there has been no review of do we need to clean people out of this department and what is going on. So I would be amenable to this, but I think we need to get, I would be amenable, can we do it when the investigation is
Mayor, I didn't
done?
second for discussion. I just did a second. So really, we shouldn't be having this conversation right now if
Agreed,
we are
but-
adhering to
so-
Robert's
so-
rules, and I don't want to do this anymore.
We have 4, you can abstain, or you can vote no, or you can vote yes.
I'll just state that I'll abstain
Then
and
it
state
passes
that I
4
like
with
the
an
investigation
4 with an
done
abstention, fine.
first.
Let's,
Actually, she can't abstain.
you can't abstain. So
It's just,
then.
you can
then-
vote no.
Then
I
it counts,
mean,
then it votes no, that's
It's not
fine.
an unreasonable request, though.
I
Can
mean,
we
if you-
modify the?
If Commissioner Casal doesn't vote, it's actually tallied as a yay, so.
So it's, I'm just saying.
Listen, I'll vote for it, but I'm just asking as us sitting
What's
up
the
here.
timing, what's the timing of the other thing? Because I really want
May I
to.
talk about that, please, just to offer
Yeah.
clarity?
Yeah, please clarity.
My interest is to get started with this right away because my interest is that we come back to the city commission as well as for administrative operations to introduce corrective actions, policies, process improvements, et cetera, that would be born from this exercise so that we can get down to business. As you all know, we are also in the process of engaging a selection process for a new director of neighborhood and community services. So that, coupled with the opportunity for an external consultant to help us achieve opportunities that, quite frankly, may not otherwise become possible, will open the door to all the rest. So my interest, quite frankly, given the affirmative action this evening, is to begin with Calvin Giordano tomorrow, follow up with Human Resources so that we can comprehensively offer an update to the City Commission publicly as to what the next steps will be in this regard, concurrent with the aforementioned selection process for a new director to lead that department. So many steps, a number of active engagements to ultimately get us to where we need to be, which is consistent with the recommendations to this effect first offered Monday, November 4, 2024. So November 4, 2024, we discussed this. We discussed it again November 19th, the outcome being 2-2. So I said, well, we'll do what we can to engage in analysis internally. However, best practice, sound recommendations, when we had the experiences we've had in the Code Enforcement Division of the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, necessitates an outside consultant review. And given the associated costs with respect to this particular consideration, very effective. We've identified the resources to get to that place. The recommendation from the Office of the City Manager is in fact consistent. So no changes in that regard. We will now connect the dots accordingly. I'm prepared to initiate leadership and guidance effective tomorrow morning, circa 8:30. I'll probably have to leave Kiwanis a few minutes early so that I can get started to this effect, ladies and gentlemen. Nevertheless, we are on point to get to work. So therefore, I look forward to offering a presentation of outcomes in the coming weeks so that we don't deviate from the timeline that I initially contemplated when we first discussed this avenue back in November.
How does that impact the human resources person that's doing it now?
It does not.
All right.
It does not. We'll bring them both together. The internal review process, however, I
think you could be a good asset for them.
And that would be part of the package. So this engagement beginning tomorrow, they will work collaboratively with one another. However, given tonight's authorization, Calvin Giordano and Associates, given their knowledge and expertise in the field of code enforcement, the ability to offer objective recommendations and considerations, will become the lead per leadership and guidance of the Office of the City Manager, Mr. Orris and myself, working to get to that place, in addition to the noted selection process concurrently.
Because there is an issue with code enforcement. I mean,
That's why we're doing this,
Everyone
sir.
is saying the same thing. So I mean,
And I appreciate the opportunity to move forward as a result of the package being presented and authorized this evening, not to mention the opportunity for external leadership to come on board on a permanent basis.
Okay, perfect. So
No, I'm fine. I mean, but understand the contract. They're about optimization. We need to maintain transparency.
We're gonna be doing that.
And accountability
we're going to be doing that.
in our operation.
We're going to be doing that.
That's part of the package, ladies and gentlemen.
I know, I'm just.
Whoa, that's
Sign from
that's
above.
a sign.
It is a sign, we gotta go.
It's a sign we belong.
We're rebooting ourselves. So the motion passes 5-0 or 4-1?
I said I would do it.
5-0. Okay. 7E.
You want
Thank you, Mr. Orris.
Thank you, Mayor.
Huh?
Thank you,
Want me to read the
Commissioners.
resolution?
Please, it's a long one.
Resolution, it is, 253-24, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, approving the issuance of purchase orders to Innovative Equipment Services 2, LLC, DBA Case Power and Equipment of Florida, Backroad FT, LLC, DBA Palmetto Ford of Miami, Bozard Ford Co., Mary Recreational Sports LLC, Kelly Trouser Company, Glade and Grove Supply Co., Inc., Tampa Crane and Body Acquisition LLC, DBA Tampa Crane, Alan J. Chevrolet Cadillac, Alan J. Ford Lincoln Mercury Inc., Garber Chevrolet Buick Pontiac GMC, and Wright Trailers Inc., utilizing Florida Sheriff's Association contract number FSA 23-EQU 21.0, FSA 23-VEH 21.1, and FSA 24-VEH 32.0, and Sourcewell contract number 0832923 AGC. Oh, it's like a vision test. 093021 SWC and 091521 NAF for the purchase of new vehicles, authorizing the city manager to issue the purchase orders and take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution, providing an effective date and for other purposes.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening.
Missy.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Missy Barletto, Director of Public Works, and I have with me an opportunity to showcase one of my great employees who doesn't get a chance to come up here very often, our Fleet Manager, Andrew Rayfield, and Jean Bittaker, Director of Purchasing. So the item that's in front of you this evening is the Master Vehicle Acquisition list, which allows us to take all of the vehicles that were previously approved by commission during the budget process and get a blanket approval to move forward with purchase orders, allowing us to acquire those vehicles in the most expeditious manner possible. As many of you know, the post-COVID world makes it very difficult to acquire the vehicles that the city needs in a timely manner. And so we bring it to you in this form so that we can, as the vehicles become available, we can move quickly and get the purchase orders into the process and get the vehicles purchased. There were some last minute changes to this particular item, which caused us to bring things forward in a different way. So you have seen one set of documents, and now we're bringing you another. The only change in this set of documents is that we were notified by one of the dealerships that the Chevy Traverse vehicles that we were purchasing for building inspectors, Chevrolet had over allocated those vehicles. They will not be available. However, the department's first choice of vehicles was actually Toyota Highlanders, and they have told us that they will be able to bring us those. So this list reflects the Toyota Highlanders as opposed to the Chevy Traverse SUVs, and that increases the cost by only $880.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to believe you on this. Commissioner Casal, any comment?
No, thank you. I spoke to staff about this. I feel comfortable with this. We already approved this in the budget. We're just going through the next step. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Burns?
No question.
Commissioner Marker?
I'm good.
Commissioner, okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
You
Just
may.
going forward, if there are these de minimis changes, like the Highlanders for $800, will the commission grant staff the authority to make those changes, or do you want this brought back?
No, I think you should have, you want to create a threshold? I mean, if it's like under $5,000 or $2,500, do we want to have a number that they have just the discretion to go ahead and do that? Yeah.
That would be great.
That would be, yeah. So
That would be extremely
is that
helpful.
acceptable to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So up to $5,000.
Yeah, because I mean, in cars, 5,000 go fast, so I mean.
Thank you.
Right.
That's great. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so I need to do a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Perfect. Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're very welcome. I want one of those, whatever you call them,
Missy.
cars.
Yes.
2016 Lexus, that's what I'm thinking of. We have No public hearings. We have some first readings. Would you like to read the first reading?
Ordinance number 27-24, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, amending the land development regulations of the City of Delray Beach Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 4 zoning regulations, Article 4.7, family workforce housing, Section 4.7.2, applicability, subsection B, workforce housing incentive areas to correct the Scrivener's error on the infill workforce housing area map, and by amending Section 4.7.4, density bonus area, subsection A, the Southwest Neighborhood Overlay District, the Carver Estates Overlay District, and the infill workforce housing area to correct the Scrivener's error in the required in lieu amount within the Southwest Neighborhood Overlay District, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, authority to codify, and providing an effective date. And this is first reading.
We need a motion to
Motion to approve ordinance number 27-24.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. 9B.
Ordinance number 37-24, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Delray Beach, Florida, amending the City of Delray Beach Code of Ordinances, Chapter 74, Civil Traffic Enforcement, by repealing the adopted Chapter 74 in its entirety and readopting same as revised with a new Chapter 74, Speed Detection Systems in School Zones, to provide for the use and implementation of school zone speed limit detection systems, providing for a local hearing officer to hear appeals, providing a conflicts clause, a severability clause, authority to codify, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. And this is first reading.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Adopted. Great. Comments on inquiries of non-agenda items. Mr. City Manager, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One item briefly, and this is a reflection over the past few weeks relative to the major projects that are currently in progress. Some recent authorizations haven't been made by City Commission. I think about Swinton. I think about what you all authorized last week, Northeast 7th Avenue. I think about what's pending with the golf course, the water treatment plant. A lot of major and significant projects and programs are being implemented. We'll be quite busy over the next few years. And frankly, I feel that we need to do the absolute best job we possibly can to share with not only residents and stakeholders, but quite frankly, the world. The Office of the City Manager will likewise begin working with the Department of Communications in the month of January to outline strategies and efforts to do the absolute best job that we possibly can so that we can adequately and appropriately inform and, quite frankly, create an environment where people can be proud of the efforts being executed across the board. I will therefore share more with you in the coming weeks as to what that looks like, a couple specific strategies on social media and other mediums to really thoroughly inform all concerned and interested in the progress that's being made by the City of Delray Beach, because quite frankly, I feel that we have a lot in which to be proud of, and I think you all should feel the same as well. Nevertheless, I also wish to offer everybody best wishes for a happy and safe holiday season, and thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney, I had one question that I asked you. Can you answer today? You're ready?
Oh, I
I wanted
can't.
to.
I don't want to forget about the appeal, but that's.
Go ahead. You do the appeal first.
Okay, so I just had briefly spoken with each of you about the gun night appeal, Mr. Schiller's appeal that the City Commission decided it was an approval by the Planning and Zoning Board. The Commission exercised its right to appeal, and according to the LDRs, that appeal needs to be heard within 60 days. That would bring us right into the holidays and the New Year. I spoke with Mr. Schiller. He has no objection to hearing the matter on February 4th, and so I'm asking, according to the code, the commission has to also be in agreement with this. So I'm bringing this evening to ask the commission to waive the 60-day hearing requirement and consider this item on February 4th, 2025.
In favor.
Everyone's okay with that?
In
Problem.
favor.
So, yep, everyone's okay with that.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure that it's not any loophole he's trying to use, that it's just going to be in writing, it's an agreement, and we've moved it to the 4th.
I will confirm it via email with him
Because
tomorrow.
I don't want to come back saying, well, you didn't act on it in 60 days, therefore.
I have text messages.
I understand we have writings, I just.
So yes, I
want to say
understand.
it
It'll
for
be
the
in
record.
writing, and I'll send it an email as well.
Okay. The second question I asked you, which I asked you to look at for me, is in the you're pulling it out?
My binder, yes.
Yep.
Coordinated planning and our local agreement.
Just, yes, about what things we are, under the interlocal agreement. I wanted to make sure, because as I'm going on saying about the school board, they need to do this, they need to do that, I just want to make sure that we're in full compliance with everything we're supposed to do on that agreement that we have, that interlocal agreement we have with them?
So pursuant to the agreement, and I know the commission knows this, this is coordinated planning, but we also have to be mindful that unlike other applicants that come before the city, the school board is its own legal entity, it's its own governmental unit, and so they have their own LDRs, their own parking regulations and things like that. However, what this statute does in compliance with Florida Statute 1013.33 is it brings the municipalities and the counties and the school board together to have these coordinated planning. What it sounds like was happening is that the school board was just making decisions on where they want to put a school without having a meaningful discussion with the city that was going to be affected by this. And so Florida statute came about, and now cities were essentially mandated to come into these interlocal agreements. And so we do have one with the school board. It is in effect for 30 years. So I think it runs 2045. And essentially what the city's obligation is basically to engage in discussion. Candidly, the school board has more of an obligation because when they want to redevelop a school or they want to, we don't really have property in Delray to build a school, but if they wanted to bring that to the city, they have the obligations to bring the applications to staff. Staff would review it. The city's not able to impose fees. It's basically almost like a courtesy review. And so the staff reviews it, gives their comments. Frankly, at the end of the day, the school board is required to consider their comments, but doesn't necessarily have to implement them. I did speak with Anthea because I know Delray Full Service is really the hot button item that really brought this agreement into light. And if you recall, Mayor, and I know you'll know this conversation started, and I know Commissioner Burns as well, back in 2020 during COVID. And so there was a lot of angst with staff. Ms. Meeks was here at the time. Scott Poppy, I believe, was one of the planners assigned to these types of projects. And this, everything was being done electronically because we couldn't meet face to face. And so I think that created almost the first signs of, maybe a breakdown in the communication with the school board because apparently they had sent the plans over and the city wasn't able to read them. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of the historical knowledge because, Ms. Meeks no longer works for the city, Mr. Poppy no longer works for the city, he retired. And so I think that was the first time that the city almost felt slighted because we didn't feel like we had that meaningful discussion. But in fairness, it was during COVID, and those meaningful discussions weren't being had because of what was going on in the country. As far as our compliance with this agreement, we have to give data yearly, actually twice a year. And so, the number of COs that are issued by the city, if we have any new development, we have to give those projections to them. We have to include them in our comp plan when we renew our comp plan every several years. So from that standpoint, I think we are in compliance. The agreement, though, and I did highlight one portion of it because it's pretty, it's one of the closing lines, but it almost says like, everybody's still a separate entity. Even though this is for better communication and better planning, at the end of the day, the city can't tell the school board what to do and the school board can't tell the city what to do because you are separate legal entities. Does that answer?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Gasol, Commissioner comments. Commissioner Gasol.
Thank you. So I was super quick. I want to congratulate our new clerk. Congratulate our new clerk. Very exciting.
I was going to do that.
Oh, sorry. Well, you let me go first. You could pull this from.
That's all right. That's all right. Great.
I wanted to also say the parade was amazing to the city and everyone who participated, fire department, police department, Parks and Rec, everybody, City of Delray Beach, another amazing parade. Also, just want to recognize the Francis J. Bright Women's Club. They were featured in the Delray magazine for they had 14 African American Rising seniors come at the 55th annual debutante cotillion. I thought that was pretty exciting. And also Tony Durant, who we know came in here with the kids who are going to Japan for the Sister City program, and they are featured in here, which is pretty exciting. Budget amendments. I really appreciated hearing from our new CFO, and one thing he said that kind of stuck in my head was, when you create your budget, then you allow for these amendments, you're changing your budget. And that's interesting. I was having a discussion. I asked finance, at the end of every year we have encumbered money that we are required to pay in the following year, which is part of contracts. And then we have rollover money, jobs that may have not been completed in that fiscal calendar year, but we approve them. I asked for a list of all of the rollover money because some of it is not getting rolled over based on budget constraints, which is okay, but I'd like to see what that is because I think some of those things may be coming up in front of us mid-year for budget amendments. And I do think we have to be conscientious in sticking in our budget, with our budget, to not have too many budget amendments, or to agree that we're going to be. Okay. What else? Oh, I can't remember if it was our city attorney or if I was speaking to the planning department about that hybrid consideration that we had with respect to the restaurants. I was a little concerned about that issue's come up numerous times. I have mixed feelings about that, and I know we're going to be talking about it again in the future, but I really wonder if we shouldn't try to figure out community outreach to the businesses to try and figure out what do we view our downtown to look like? What do we want it to look like? I think a lot of people have said we do not want it to be a nightclub atmosphere, and I don't, but I'm home in bed early, so I think it might already be a nightclub atmosphere, and I'm just not well aware. Also concerned because in thinking back about it, I'm worried about the extra work that this will require for our responders. And so I think even though we said let's move forward and look at it, I think we need to do that very conscientiously, and I think we need some probably community input from our residents. And I have something that I wrote that I cannot read, so I don't know what it is, so thank you. Oh, and happy holidays to everyone. Oh, and Mr. Moore, I would like an update tomorrow on where we are at with the investigation. And I'm sorry if you find the word mismanagement offensive, but I cannot think of another because I'm struggling to understand why we sit here and we don't have information all the time. The only way we get it is asking, and then we're really not getting information. I would think you, above all people sitting up here, would want this resolved quickly. And
I do
yet,
wish for it to be
but there is
resolved
such,
quickly and
we're 10 months
responsibly.
later. It's a slowness that I'm not appreciating.
Steady hand and responsible, ma'am.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burns. We want to go over there, Commissioner Long, whatever.
Sure. I wanted to briefly bring up Miss Cadell from Miracle Eve's comments. I worked with her a little bit during the process for the trick or treat thing, and I worked with Jeff Orris to try and reduce her fees as much as possible just through the process. We were able to a little bit, but the costs were tied to needing to have officers on site because they were closing down a block, and it brought up a bigger issue of is there anything we can do to assist organizations like hers? I mean, it was really only a few $100, which to an organization like theirs is a lot. And I'd like to be able to have a little more flexibility in how we work with our small-scale nonprofits like that, especially Miracle League. I mean, they're doing really, really important work. And so I think Mr. Orris brought up something we'd spoken about before, and I think I brought it up here at one point, or one of us did, about having like a little fund tied to our special events process for like ancillary fees and stuff for these organizations that we could approve on an as-needed basis. Something to that effect. I don't know what exactly that looks like, but I'd like for us to have a discussion about it.
Can I say something?
Yeah, I want to hear you.
Mr. Orris and I just met yesterday on
Oh.
that, and he's drafting up a.
Yes, ma'am. So I had a discussion with you as well about this. I'm looking at the January 21st City Commission meeting to bring back a consideration regarding that particular point. So I appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you, Commissioner Burns, one-on-one about the idea and the concept. So Mr. Orris and I are working to come up with a concept that provides some opportunity for commission to consider direction to that effect. So the commitment is the January 21st meeting because, again, I've spoken to a number of you all individually about some potential interest in this regard, and our interest is to be structured in terms of a policy consideration.
State Representative Deborah Tendrich and Joe Casella were both there. Really great turnout. Really, really cool event. Had a very multicultural sort of approach to it. A lot of fun. I just wanted to give them a shout out. and just say happy holidays to everyone, and I'll see you guys at the menorah lighting.
Mr. Marker.
Thank you. A big shout out to the police department and the fire department. Some of you know this story, but one of our residents in Lake Ida returned home at 10:30 in the morning on Thanksgiving Day and found her husband dead on the floor next to the treadmill. Police were the first ones to respond, and Russ, she was so thankful. The officers were so kind and gentle with her. It was amazing. Obviously, fire rescue responded as well, and a shout out to Chief Martin for actually calling the resident, offering the services of our chaplain and our grief counselors. It made a huge difference in her life, gentlemen. The way she was treated at so far the lowest point in her life by far, and she just wanted me to publicly thank both your organizations for being so kind in a really tragic situation. So thank you guys.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes. The parade was great. Seems like I'm the only one that got the cold from the rain falling on my head.
Tell me that.
Well, you know, it's just nasal.
His head was actually above the clouds.
Like, you know, with my hair like this, my head, I should have had it covered, but I didn't. But it was great, and again, as Rob said, we attended the kickoff of the 12 Days of Christmas event, which was the Beloved Community Concert. It was awesome. Community coming together. It was just a different feel. And great. I want to wish everybody happy holidays. And also, I don't know if I remember, but Commissioner Burns is also featured in the magazine.
Ooh.
Congratulations.
I sent you that picture, didn't I?
Yes, thank you.
I sent it to you.
Just a little thing on Kwanzaa. So if you just
Sorry.
I posted it and sent it to you first. I have a couple of things. First of all,
Oh my goodness.
I do think when we have presentations that we should all get the slides kind of on Friday, so we can see what the slides are going to look like, so we can develop some questions. Because, you know, getting them, they're not in your materials, and we're faced to give us a slide. I think about things after I've left when I go back, and I really think we should have the slides on Friday. And going to an earlier point that Commissioner Casal and I both were talking about, you know, agenda items, we really have to do better in making sure we know what the agenda is at the time of the meeting. In the old days, 100 years ago, when there was an agenda item change, we would have in front of us, in a separate package, all of the agenda item changes so that we would know what they were. But we really need to know at least a day in advance, 24 hours, because I don't have to, I mean, I just caught that here and I said, you know, that wasn't in my book, and you know, I just, because I actually, one of those ones I haven't printed, I actually read it. So I don't like it looking at it on the screen.
So, Mr. Mayor and ladies and gentlemen, just to chime in, I'd like to go ahead and support the 24-hour position. Yeah. So if I could get you all's consensus and support to that effect, I'll work with the executive leadership team team beginning this week to execute the steps necessary to get to that place. That's fair, and I'll support that.
Perfect. Second.
Wait, Mayor, do you want to do close of business on Friday, or is there a time on Friday?
You know, as long as I have it over the weekend, I mean, you know, if they want to send it 8 o'clock at night on a Friday, I'm not going to say they have to have
Which
it.
may very well happen.
You know, it's okay. I'm just, because, so we have time to look at it over.
Clubs by then.
Huh?
So I'm at the clubs.
He's out at the clubs. He won't even see it. He won't see it until Sunday morning when, you know, because he's actually down there. Mr. Hybrid's actually down there. He understands. Only because there was some confusion. They wanted to make sure that there was consensus on this. There had been put in place moratoriums on placing benches around, and it was done for good reason. The benches were, you know, people were sleeping on them and all that other kind of stuff. But the Rotary wants to do a bench for Roy Simon right near the Boy Scout monument there at the corner of Old School Square as the original founder of the DDA and that whole thing. So I just wanted to make sure, because we do have this policy that we don't want it, and they can't be willy-nilly giving them to people, but he's a particular, you know, he is a founder, just like, you know, we did, I think for Libby Wesley, there are people out there that really deserve this kind of recognition. So I just want to make sure that we have consensus. That's okay. They're going to work with Parks and Rec to get the kind of bench that they want, you know, one probably with an arm in it so they can't sleep on it and that kind of stuff. Is that?
I'm going to say this. I feel like a bench is a little, don't we want something bigger?
This isn't coming from the city. This is Rotary trying to do
okay.
it. So if we do something separate,
All right.
which
Yeah,
we may
I
very
feel
well
like a
do,
bench
but the
is-
Rotary wants to do this. They got it all ready
yeah,
to go.
fine.
And so I'm just making sure that we're okay with that. Okay, so we're
Is that
with it.
okay that we do that, Lynn? Excuse me, Attorney Jelen.
It's just accepting a donation, I think. So.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
right, but the policy was nobody can do a bench, so now I just had to, that's what I'm trying to say, to get it,
Yeah, we can change that.
yeah, okay. I am concerned about some of the policies as it relates for the not-for-profits and the subsidies that we give them. We talked about having that we put this in and we would give them once or twice a year, they could take advantage of it. When we offer police and fire as a portion of the subsidy, it costs us money, and it's 50%. So I really think we need to discuss a limit on how many times they can go to that well. Whether that's twice.
I thought we did a monetary limit.
We did a monetary limit.
I had this conversation with Mr. Orris because soft goods are the staff. So if we gave a monetary limit of $8,000,
$8,000 was the limit.
Right, then you see people coming back over and over again.
But that didn't
They
include
automatically
that
are
didn't
getting
include police and fire.
50%.
That didn't include the subsidy. And what I'm saying
Right.
is, I want to.
We need to limit it across the board, all money, services from the taxpayers, I think.
Right. So.
Yeah.
that-
Because the
that-
special events policy says that the applicant, if it's a nonprofit, gets 50% off on the soft goods and they pay the hard goods. The soft goods are our services, our staff, and the like.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have you all's consensus so that we can prepare the policy adjustments accordingly?
Fine. Good.
Thank you. That means $8,000, a combination of cash, staff resources, whatever the case may be, in that regard.
What I would like, if you don't mind, because I know we have some churches that come in, I would like a list of who received it all. Is this a difficult thing to do? In the last year and what the monetary benefit was. I don't want it to be I want the special events, the nonprofits, if you don't mind. And that would
I was going
include.
to get back to you. I just wanted to finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. That would include the 8,000 that we offered Muscle on the Beach. If they do another event throughout the course of the year, I want to know what that event is and how much, because I think we need to have a reasonable cap on what we are distributing in taxpayer money. While we appreciate that most of these nonprofits are giving it back, it needs to be reasonable.
We can accomplish that in the coming days, and we'll have something for you.
So you can email each of us.
No,
that's not the special events policy.
That's not what this is. No, sir. Will do.
I know that you started working on the visions thing. By the way, the visioning people told me that it should be 2035, not 2040, because you do visioning for 10 years and nobody can predict what we do in 15. So you wrote Division 2040, so I just wanted to
it should be 2035.
And I do think there's a fair point when we have contracts that roll over into the year that we know what those numbers are when they roll over, because it is a budget number, and just to take them and drop them into general fund and then spend them, I just think it's important to know what some of those rollover numbers are.
Of course.
So those carryover numbers are.
Are you talking the encumbered numbers or the rollover? Because they're two different things.
The rollover, the contracts, when you have
It's not the contract. This is stuff we approve that didn't get spent.
Right,
is the rollover.
Correct.
That's what I asked for the list of, and hopefully
that's
I'll have
what
it
that's
next
what I'm
week.
asking for. What else did I want? In Robert's rules, I've given everybody their book.
Okay, we need the Cliff Notes version.
I'll give the Cliff. I will.
I feel like I'm going to bring this to my book club, and hope somebody else reads it. Tells me what happened.
Anyway, but how are we in getting?
So we've identified an individual who can become available for training. So my interest would be to have arrangements to this effect sometime in the new year. It will not fall in line with the existing workshop and regular meeting schedule. We will simply make arrangements for a date convenient for all to participate in a Robert's Rule of Order workshop.
Good.
For specific training purposes. One item, this is anticipated to take about a 2-hour exercise. So what I would like to therefore do, thereabouts, 90 minutes, we'll do the best we can. But ladies and gentlemen.
I already went to a 4-hour one. I had 4 classes online already. $49 a piece.
And ladies and gentlemen, 2 hours is not so bad when you think about opportunities for 4, 6, and 8 hours. They are out there, believe it or not. So
I just wanted to,
my interest is to have Noemi work with all of you all to come up with a date and time convenient for this purpose as we finalize arrangements with the identified individual who will conduct the training within the next coming weeks or so.
because as we come into the new year, I'm trying to create a culture of like respect and
We need to see if you
kindness
can
and-
just pull the mic randomly, because
Huh?
I'm going to find that.
Which one? Did you see? Watch the first. Watch what the chair can actually. I mean, it's you got to watch Maria Marino's first meeting as county commissioner to know what you can do at the chair.
Feels like an abuse of power.
You'll go look. Anyway, anything else or anybody? We're gonna have the Palm Health is coming. What day?
The opioid follow-up will take place during the January 14th meeting, and then we'll follow up with the Karen Foundation piece. So
I have a question.
That's when that would be.
Why is the Palm Health coming? I thought we were going to set up our
you're going to set up your committee.
Right, so why are we having
They're-
Palm
they're-
Health come?
They're there to help us to figure out what we want to do, and they'll raise us a ton of money.
Wait, how are they raising us money? I thought we had selected our, we were going
No,
to do
that's for the
police,
opioid.
fire.
That's for the ones for the
Oh,
DARE
you're
program.
talking for the Karen Foundation?
You're talking about Karen, so that'll be forthcoming as well. That's separate and apart from this. So we'll offer some structure in terms of what that looks like, but the opioid question, that's specifically what you asked about, Mayor, that will take place during the January 14th meeting, we think, and you'll have actually, the other piece will take place, I apologize, January 14th. However, the appointment process will be forthcoming in the coming weeks as well.
One more question. I thought we had restrictions on how the Karen money it could be spent in a, do we have that in a document that you can send? Is there a contract?
There's a settlement agreement.
Okay, so
I
we
think
know how
Mr.
it needs-
Orris is working on a policy.
That's correct, and that's what will be brought back before the City Commission. That's what's anticipated via January 14th workshop meeting, as previously communicated in writing, so that we can get our arms around what our capabilities are and are not, as well as policy considerations to be made available. So that will be forthcoming at that time.
Just, I do want to. You got to humor me on Palm Health. I got to listen to them. I'm just asking the commission to listen to them,
But
and
how
with
do
the
we
breathing.
how do we select our advisory board if we're not hearing from anyone
Right.
other than?
That's separate, Commissioner.
That's a separate thing.
So we'll make them separate. We'll be sure that they are. They always have been. So your opioid appointments, that will be forthcoming, and then the Karen Foundation piece will be these types of considerations, January 14th.
The people that want to be a part of the opioid board, how do they?
There's currently, we're facilitating an application process, much like other board and commission appointments by the City Commission. So we are in the process of essentially soliciting applications from individuals who may be interested in being part of this from the community. So applications will likewise be presented for your review and consideration in the coming weeks as well.
And are those applications available online right now, or?
They will soon be posted online, so that will be forthcoming. So part of the nexus is to get that all squared away. Now that we formally appointed a permanent city clerk, you'll be in position to assist us in that regard. So in the coming days, we should have some momentum to that effect as well. So we look forward to that as we close out the current calendar year in preparation for the new year, enabling the commission to make those appointments.
Okay, and my final comment is to congratulate our new clerk. And just make sure I don't get into trouble. But I don't care about the rest of it. Any other thing?